David, how was your marathon of First Take at the dentist this morning?
I didn't turn that on. I turned on Abbott Elementary in the background.
What is that?
It's like a office-style docu-comedy about a school in Philadelphia. It's a good show.
Traditional 3-camera?
Yeah, it's a good show. It's, traditional in the sense that it looks kind of just like, it has a lot of gym moments where they're staring at the camera kind of stuff.
I love when he does
Mark
that.
show up?
There's no Mark. No Mark. It's a good show. Heartwarming. You should watch it.
Must be nice having time to watch Abbott Elementary.
Yeah, while my teeth are getting ripped out by a dentist.
It makes it all better.
Yeah.
Tooth chat.
Can I give you my take on having a newborn?
You better give it to us before you have to leave, yes.
Yeah, so newborns can be very easy. What's hard is when you have a newborn and a toddler and your time is just always accounted for.
Yes.
And I just don't know when I will have time to do anything ever again.
I can tell you when you'll have time to do a little bit, which is about 6 months from now when the newborn is sleeping through the night, or maybe 4 months from now when that's happening. When you're getting the 7-8 hour stretch, you're going to turn into someone who loves only sleeping for 3 hours a night. And that's how you're going to get gray hair, which is, and I'm not saying this from experience.
Devin, let's talk about the non-kid life and how wonderful it is that we do whatever we want, whenever we want.
Yeah, something like that.
Like record podcasts about the last 150 cards left in this stinking set.
Is it only 150?
It might be more.
Hello and welcome to episode 278 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, strategies, and spoilers for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line from Denver, Colorado, it's the one and only Shane Beeps.
I'm gonna breathe for you.
That wasn't hard. I control my breath.
Well, you're a professional broadcaster. Only been at this for 5 years. The Stanislav.
Shane.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
For these several minutes that he will be back. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
Wait a second, guys. My new infant is crying in the other room.
Yeah, he does that sometimes. But sometimes he does nothing.
I do too.
I'm more concerned about the almost 3-year-old, to be honest. The infant is like, all he does is eat and sleep. That's all he does.
That's all I do.
He's like 10 days old. That's awesome. Whatever. Enough about infants. Let's talk about the other young blood in the room, Devin O'Donnell, aka Doomwake.
Young blood.
Young
what are you
blood.
talking about?
I mean, you were not a founding member of the Dive Down.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about my age.
We had to call it out.
We had to mold you. You adopted the darkness that is podcasting.
I was born in it.
We signed the LLC paperwork.
Signed the LLC.
He really has a beautiful voice.
Oh, man.
Devin, I've always wanted to ask you, do you like Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah, I do.
It rules, right? It's not bad.
It's a good movie.
I've never seen it.
I get Dave laughing at me. Why? Do you not like Dark Knight Rises?
I've never seen it. But this reference is like 12 years old. Isn't that movie 12 like from
Oh gosh.
2012?
It's still valid.
Sorry, I'm not quoting Dune 2.
To drink in Italy.
Oh man.
Dave, what are some of your favorite pop culture movies to reference these days?
I'm a big fan of The Graduate.
Still have not seen
I'm
that.
a big fan of broadcast news. I'm a big fan of Superman 1. Anything else from the early 80s, 70s I could talk about? Or
No.
You know what the other thing I'm a big fan of? It's Heavy Play. The card gaming accessory brand designed to improve your gameplay and your game day with their playmats, their deck boxes, their sleeves. They're all designed with enhanced ergonomics for mobility and protection. We love them very, very much in the Dive Down, and we think you'll like them too, especially the Equip Mag system that magnetically attaches dice and deck boxes to your playmat so you can carry it all in one hand. And you can get a discount on Heavy Play over at heavyplay.com with promo code TheDiveDown2024 for 10% off. your first order. Check it out, heavyplay.com.
Sweet. Stan,
Yeah, dude.
you want to talk about the second half of this set?
Can you catch me up on the first half really quick?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a brief summary.
Last time on the dive down. Dun, dun, dun.
You know what? I listened to the 2 hours. It was nice to hear a 2 hour dive down again for old time's sake.
I just
So I
imagine
know
the
about
24 clock going beep, beep, beep.
Dun, dun.
So yeah, I'll just summarize this. So we did colorless through green last week.
Wooberg.
This week, we were going to finish up the multicolor, the artifacts, the lands, and then because we're going in set order, we then have like the dual-faced cards, we have the reprints that are into the set, and then I think we're done. So we have, it ends at number 303. We are at number 177. Perfect. And then, I don't know if my co-hosts are ready for this, but I did my awards, much like we did for MH2. And maybe my co-hosts will just have some stuff to shout at me when we get there. Or maybe they're hiding their awards from me.
I have not thought about this at all. I'm just going to give out awards as you present the categories. Yeah,
just wing it,
fine.
baby.
We're fine to wing it.
That's what they do at award shows anyways. So
That's true. So, yeah, another easy, breezy, beautiful episode of the Dive Down.
However, did we have any housekeeping to do before we get into this?
We do have housekeeping.
Any new patrons? Any of that kind of stuff, friends? I didn't look.
I didn't look. Devin, did you look?
So we have one new patron. It is, I believe, Brendan B. Thank you, Brendan. Brendan B. for becoming a citizen of the Dive Down Nation. No new reviews. No increased tiers. We did have some people shout in the Spotify comments. Thank you for engaging there. If you want to be like Brendan, if you want to join the Patreon, if you want to help support us, help enthuse us to keep doing these very long set reviews late into the night, you can go to patreon.com/thedivedown. We appreciate all y'all. There's someone like new every week, and it's amazing. I love it. I love the ongoing support. Thank you, everyone out there in the nation. You can go to the store, thedivedown.com/store, grab yourself some stuff. You can go to Mana Traders. You can use our sign-up code, thedivedown_43A, which is in the show notes. Don't worry about that. That goes to the end of June, so you've got another month. And if you want to get some paper cards, the freshest MH3, you can go to Nerd Rage Gaming, use code DIVE8 for 8% off of your order. There you go.
We did it. All right,
Dang,
card.
Good.
177. Let's get into it, yeah?
real
All
quick.
right, we got multicolor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, real quick. Oh, we got a real quick.
Yeah, 7.
Before we get started, it's not related to MH2, but I just wanted to
Perfect.
give a quick shout out for this weekend. For those of you who don't know, DreamHack Dallas happened this past weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the people who made the finals, aka qualified for the World Championships, was somebody that I've known for the past 10 years of my life. We grew up, well, I didn't grow up, but we played a lot of like team drafts and stuff. So shout out to Chris Barone. You're probably not listening to this because I don't even think he plays Modern, but if you are, congratulations, buddy. It's been a long time coming.
That's great.
Chris.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Devin,
How
I've
was
known
your
him for
weekend
so
overall?
long.
Yeah, you got anything else to say?
It was a good weekend. I mean, I made some plays that were not, up to my standards, but so it goes sometimes. It was a long day. Dude, we got there at, I think, 8 I got at the site at 8 a.m., and I didn't leave until 10:30. And we played 9 rounds of Magic. So
It's our top days.
It was a long day, but it was a fun weekend. I had a great time, and it was really awesome to see Chris do so well.
Were you in the Fort Worth side, or were you actually in Dallas?
No, we were in Dallas.
Okay. I don't know anything about Dallas. I love that Fort Worth.
Fort Worth
They
Art
get good
Festival.
barbecue.
Yeah.
Art festivals every weekend.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Devin, you'll get him next time. I believe in you.
There is always a next time.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's pop into it. Card. Here's the funny thing. We're starting with what I believe are 12 cards that are skips in gold that we are just not going to talk about as part of potentially being modern players. Here are the names: abstruse appropriation, which I cannot believe is a word. Abstruse appropriation, I know. Arna Kennerud, Sky Captain, Conduit Goblin, Cranial Ram, Cursed Wombat, Cyclops Superconductor, Emissary of Soulfire, Expanding Ooze, Faithful Watchdog, Genku Future Shaper, Golden Tail Trainer, and Horrid Shadow Spinner. All of these are skips as far as modern play goes. Any objections?
No, there goes like 10% of what we had left. Perfect.
The only one that I'll note on is Cranial Ram, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about something that involving Rakdos Affinity in a second. But if there is a Rakdos Affinity deck, I do think this is a pretty sizable upgrade to Cranial Plating. You're trading the instant equip for the living weapon, and that's a pretty close trade off. But the issue with this card is it's cost black red, and all the good Affinity cards are blue, and your mana base kind of sucks in Affinity. So
yeah, it's a bit. Frustrating as a constructed player to see like the pretty cool Rakdos Affinity stuff. I think we have some more in this set, and it's like, well, if this would work so well if it wasn't these, really bad modern mana constraints potentially.
Yeah, it makes me feel like it's a plant. Like there must be something they want people to do with this if they've given us several different Rakdos payoffs for Affinity. So I'm just going to read Cranial Ram just so people know what it is. It is Cranial Ram. It is a black and a red for an artifact equipment, living weapon. Equipped creature gets +X+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and it has equip 2. Like Devin said, slightly more expensive. It's more expensive to equip too, right?
Yeah,
so,
the equip on Cranial Plating is 1.
Right. So you can't equip it at instant speed like you can with Cranial. It costs a little more to equip, but coming with a creature, that's a pretty good thing. So we will see, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to some of these other potential payoffs that are in Rakdos for Affinity. I'll just keep going here because what we have is one of those cards now. It's called Imskir Iron Eater for 6 generic, a black and a red. It is a 5/5 legendary creature demon with affinity for artifacts. And it says when Imskir Iron Eater enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is half the number of artifacts you control rounded down. Then it has 3 generic and a red, sacrifice an artifact. Imskir deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value to any target. Okay, there's a lot on this card. This is something that made me go, what is this? And who is this for? And what does this do? But it's a big 5/5 that draws a bunch of cards when it comes into life. And you'd have to have a lot of artifacts to do this. So potentially you're going to draw 3, lose 3 when this comes into play. And then after it's here, you get to throw a medium-sized artifact or perhaps something like a Sojourner's Companion at somebody and do 7 damage with it. So, something else that you've affinityed out, like Frogmite or whatever. So there's kind of a bit going on here.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Sojourner's Companion, and we even have... you can play 12 Mirror Enforcers now, because you have original Mirror Enforcer, Sojourner's Companion, and the new Frog Mirror Enforcer.
Right.
So you can get as many Mirror Enforcers as you can possibly ever want to get your hands on, and combined with that sacrifice ability. Again, I think the issue here is black-red, where this is sort of very similar to Thought Monitor, where it's like, reduce cost, draws cards when it ETBs. But the problem is the Affinity deck is already kind of starting with just 8 required colorless lands, where you're kind of required to play 4 Citadel, 4 Saga. And it's very, very difficult to get enough sources of colored mana in your deck. Even if you want it to be a black-red deck and just cut blue entirely, you're still only working with mostly probably like 8 colored lands and 4 drums, which is not a lot when you're thinking about a 2-colored card.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see if it's worth stretching into, right? Like I feel like there's things that are seeded here for people to try it. Those are 3 of the cards that are, and we'll kind of see where it goes. All right. The next card is a card I'm sort of interested to see what everybody in this group thinks. Curious to see if Stan has seen this card or not, since he said he hasn't seen every single card in the set necessarily.
I've seen this one.
You've seen this one. All
right,
right, this next card.
I saw it.
Saw it. Invert Polarity is a blue, and a red for an instant that says choose target spell, then flip a coin. If you win the flip, gain control of that spell, and you may choose new targets for it. If you lose the flip, counter that spell. What is this card? What is this card?
Really weird.
A weird cancel. Pretty good cancel. Unless I'm understanding this wrong, it's a expensive cancel-ish, more mana constraints half the time, and utterly bonkers the other half. Provided you have blue, red up.
I think that kind of nails the outline of it.
Yeah. I personally, I kind of hate this card just because, Like, I think the card is extremely powerful. My hatred towards it is not necessarily lies in the power level. It's just frequently a lot of this is going to be like flip a coin. If not necessarily if you lose the flip, you lose the game. But like, for example, a situation that people had brought up was Cavern of Souls, where it says if you win the flip, gain control of that spell, and you may choose new targets. So if your opponent casts a Primeval Titan with Cavern, you can gain control of it and not actually counter it, right? Because you're taking it, you're not countering it. So it does work against Cavern, but against that, it's going to be 50% either flip a coin. If you win the flip, you win the game. If you lose the flip, you lose the game. And I don't know. I kind of despise cards like that where it's extremely high variance.
I will say when you put it that way, that makes it feel like a better tool for control decks against Cavern decks specifically.
Sure.
It's like better that than Archmage's Charm, which is like the other 3-mana counterspell that sees modern play.
That doesn't even see modern play anymore, really. Not really, but...
Yeah, this is a dangerous card to put into a format because, like Devin said, it's pretty high variance and it's potentially pretty feel bads. Like if you're the one casting it, or if you're the one having your spell being taken control of by your opponent, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad card to print. It just means that I think that this is not necessarily the kind of thing that people are always really happy to potentially have to play and have not work sometimes, or have to, be careful of playing against. The cost could just be prohibitive enough, or, 3 mana in a long control game is not really worth caring about. And you're just going to, own your opponent sometimes. So I don't know. It seems it's more dangerous than I'd like. It's also a $10 rare. So it shows that people are pretty hype on it.
I just think it's a cancel with huge ceiling, right?
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know how good that is in modern right now. Like, bottom line, we'll see, I guess. I think people are definitely going to try it, especially once people read the card a few times and realize that if they if they target a creature or permanent with this, that they gain control of the permanent. If they, you know what I mean? So it took a minute for that to kind of bubble through some people's evaluation of the card. So, you kind of, it's either counter your spell or counter your spell and draw a card-ish, but it's still 3 mana, so I don't know.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is it seems to me to be at its best as a sideboard option against people who are casting more expensive cards, because those cards you actually have the time to cast cancel against, like Karn Liberated, Karn the Great Creator, the One Ring, all this stuff that's like 4 and 5 mana haymakers. And the downside is you're spending 3 mana to counter their 4 mana spell, which is fine because you're up mana in exchange. And the upside is you win the game on the spot. So I think that's the best spots where I see for this card.
Yeah. So probably people are going to try it. All right. Next, we're going to skip Izzet Generatorium. We're going to skip Kudo King Among Bears. Sorry, I don't think there's a lot to say about this one unless... Do you have something to say about it, Devin?
The only thing I have to say is, duh, Bears.
Bears.
That's it.
I mean, card's interesting, but I don't think it's going to get there. All right, here's a card that some people, including maybe Devin, think are super broken. And
this is on a lot of top lists. I finally cracked. I did a little digging on what people are actually hype about so that I could see what is potentially over or underhyped, and people are into this card.
Yeah, and that card is Nadu Winged Wisdom for a generic, a green, and a blue with a 3/4 stat line. It is a legendary creature, bird wizard. It has flying, and it says creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. This card doesn't make a lot of sense the first time you read it, and then you go, oh, okay. Okay.
You read it again, and then you read it again, and then you're like, oh.
It's kind of like the Big Lebowski. The first time, it doesn't really leave much of an impression, and then the second time, you get really excited, and then the third time, you get really, really excited. And then the fourth time, you get kind of mad. But...
Yeah, this is something, right? This is definitely something. The interesting thing is the ability triggering only twice each turn, but I feel like people have already figured out, like, that it's still pretty broken? Like, are there ways of like working around the triggering twice each turn, or is that just enough? Or
I mean, it triggers twice each turn for each creature that exists on your board. So that's what we're talking about.
Yes,
okay.
That's that whole part of reading the card and then reading it again. You got to figure out where the quotation marks are.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I see. Okay. Yeah, this is dumb.
What are the best 0 equip cost spells in Modern?
Got one for you. It spiked up to $15, apparently. The card is called Shuko. You guys familiar with Shuko from
Yes, I am.
original Kamigawa block? I forget which set it's in. But it gives... It's in Betrayers. It looks like a Betrayers card. It's a very mean card. It gives +1/+0. It costs a single mana, and it has equip 0. Mm-hmm. That's all it does.
So, funny story about this card. For those of you, for the listeners at home that may not know, this was the card that Wizards gave to me as a preview card. And what's funny about this is they gave it to me about a week and a half before I was going to reveal it. And I saw the card at first, and I thought to myself, okay, this is probably good with like mutagenic growth, gut shot. Like there's maybe some free spells that you can play that target this thing. And I was like, there's maybe some cool stuff you can do with it. And I hadn't really thought about like going super deep with, 0 equip costs. And the day that I spoiled it on my stream, I saw somebody in chat post like this with Shuko. And I was like, it was like a light bulb that just went on in my head. I was like, oh my God, I didn't think of this. So, yeah. So what's really disgusting about this card is there are cards that say landfall generate a token, which we talked about last week, the Springheart Nantuko Cultivator, whatever the Springheart Nantuko,
right? Which
is the 2 mana bestow 1/1, and then landfall, you get a 1/1 token. And why that's so good with Nadu is let's say you have the Shuko and the Springheart in play. You can Shuko, equip the Nadu. If you hit a land off Nadu, the land makes a 1/1. Every new token that you make off of the Springheart gets the Nadu ability twice, because it's for each individual creature, triggers twice each turn. So then for that token, you have 2 more shots at hitting a land, which will generate another token, so on and so forth. And you could just basically draw your entire deck. And that's kind of like the core of the 3-card combo, as it were. There's other ways to landfall generate a token. I think there was Scoot Swarm, which is from Zendikar Rising. It was a 3 mana 2/2 landfall make a 1/1. Or maybe it's landfall make a plant, but in any case, it's landfall make a token. And that core kind of forms the backbone of this engine that's just, if you can assemble these 3 pieces. And they're not even that hard to assemble, because you can Stoneforge or Saga for the Shuko. You can Recruiter for the Springheart. The hard card to find is Nadu, but yeah, I'm gonna be playing a lot with this card, and I think it has the potential to be extremely broken.
Yeah, this is a wild one. I mean, it's a complex combo, but even like with Shuko, it's still value, and I think there's probably other cards that can be. I mean, is Shuko still the most novel card that works with this, or are there other kind of similar cards that we can run along with Shuko if we wanted 8 of them?
Yeah, we did a search for Equip 0, and I think Shuko there was maybe one other one. It was like leather boots or something, but it was Equip 0, but you could only equip it once per turn, so it didn't really work with Nadu.
Okay.
So I think Shuko was the only one.
And what's the win con, like a Thassa's Oracle type thing?
Yeah. Yeah, you just draw your deck Thassa's Oracle, because the lands that the Cultivator puts into play come in untapped. So.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Interesting card.
Another important thing to note about Shuko is, and I haven't confirmed this 100%, but this is what I was told, is you can Shuko, if you only have a Shuko and a Nadu and no other creatures in play, you can equip the Shuko to Nadu, and then you can equip it again, and that still triggers it. Now, I don't know if that's accurate, but I think that's how it works.
Yes, that's accurate.
Yeah.
From Hammer
Which makes it even better.
Stuff, yeah.
Even if you're just empty boarded, just Nadu Shuko, you can still just draw 2 cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have my doubts about stuff like this. There's certain things about descriptions of cards like this that make me feel a little bit like when we got Elspeth's Sword into Devoted Druid and New Capenna, and people were like, Devoted Druid's back. But, there's always creature combos out there waiting to be broken and modern. So maybe this is the new one that makes it go, really. All right. I think we could probably... Do we want to talk about the Necrobloom? I kind of thought it was a skip, but... Devin? Yeah.
I mean, I like it, but it's 4 mana. That's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to skip it. Obstinate Gargoyle is a skip, and Ondu Not Master /Throw a Line is a skip. It's very strange that one. Oh, it's an adventure. I was like that double face card is, but there's one adventure in this set. Didn't even realize it. All right, the next card we have to talk about is Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. This was Stan's preview card over on Polygon. If you're not familiar with it, it is a generic red and a white for a 6/6 legendary creature, Elder Giant. When Flage enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever Flage enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Escape red, red, white, white. Exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. Anything new to say about this card?
Love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I have not been building Flage decks in between our episodes, but I do think that it has potential aggressive mid-range slanted chops. It has potential Omnath-y style chops. It's a very cool card.
Yep, totally agree. Stan, anything else to say about the card that you got to write about before anybody else?
Mason Clark wrote a really interesting Twitter thread about designing this card.
Yes.
Which was interesting that it just kind of came to fruition with little editing afterward, which I thought was cool, and that the 2-mana version of just like Lightning Helix on an escape creature was much too powerful.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, like, if Lightning Helix was too powerful, could this, for 3 mana, be reasonably powerful enough?
Yeah, like they just added 1 mana and I was like, that's good, but they didn't maybe necessarily fully test it in that environment, and it might still be pretty darn good.
We'll see.
We'll see, indeed.
I couldn't imagine this card being 2 mana.
If this was Kroxa, it would have been amazing.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, next card, Planar Genesis for a green and a blue. It's an instant, and it says, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put a card from among them into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. This is Growth Spiral plus Impulse, basically. And
Staple them together.
I think a very cool card, personally.
Sleeper.
Yeah.
The fact that it's an instant, I think, is also like really impressive.
The fact that it says any land card. You could use this to dig for all kinds of stuff. You want to look for sagas. You want to look for, you want to look for Labyrinth or some other kind of like affinity payoff that, I don't know. I'm just imagining all kinds of different things that this could go in. But it's not just, not just basics. You could look for that green card that we're going to talk about in a little bit that everybody's all hyped up about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is, I have in the notes here, this is my unholy heat of the set, which was common or uncommon that was spoiled in the last batch of cards that nobody pays attention to. I like this card a lot. I think that the problem with Growth Spiral is you only get the cantrip, right? But you only get to look at 1 card. If you don't have a land in hand, you just miss the extra land drop. This is early on, look at 4, so you're much more likely to find a land, and then later on, Growth Spiral only draws 1 card when you need to find Scapeshift. This, when you don't need the land, this just digs you 4 to find the Scapeshift. So It seems perfect in those like blue-green Scapeshift decks. I know the old ones play like Remand and Cryptic Command. I don't know if they're going to go back to that, but I certainly do think this is an extremely powerful tool and definitely being slept on for Scapeshift decks.
Nice. All right, Psychic Frog. Blue and a black for a 1/2 creature frog. Whenever Psychic Frog deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card, and then it has discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Psychic Frog, exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Psychic Frog gains flying until end of turn.
I get this now. This is Psychotog.
This is Psychotog. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I get it now.
Was that a good card?
Did you never play with that or get a chance to? Yes.
It's a classic.
Classic.
I never played a Psychotog deck. I think it's in my old Peasant Cube still, because I think there's like a sort of discard reanimator thing. People are very hype on this. I'm curious if there's like is this good enough to be a build around? Is there like a home that is worth making for this deck? You tell me.
So hear me out. All right. Turn 2 Psychic Frog. Turn 3 Necrodominance. End step, draw 15 before discard step, discard by hand to Psychic Frog.
Yeah. Or discard 10 cards and hold the 5
or discard
cards.
10, keep 5,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of all, eggs in one basket, but if you can find Force of Negations or Subtleties to protect the frog after the fact, It could legitimately be a strategy. I mean, I don't exactly know where this goes outside of that, but I think it does combine very, very well with the Necro.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that something interesting like that will happen with Necro instead of it just being like, a bad combo deck. Like, let's do a weird creature thing, make it giant, and then do like basically a fatal push check and see how that goes as part of the format. I think it's really interesting that this has Ophidian on it. That's like when it does damage, you get to draw a card, which is like, thanks, I guess. Sure. But I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and it's certainly priced okay for Modern. So, yeah, I like it. Okay, I'm going to skip right now. We're going to skip Pyretic Rebirth, Riddlegate Gargoyle, Roshin Soaring Prophet, Scurry of Gremlins, Snapping Void Claw, Sneaky Snacker, and Titan's Vanguard.
That Sneaky Snacker gets him every time.
Gets me every time.
Sneaky Snacker.
That's honestly me. Can I confess something to you guys? I've become a sneaky snacker. Just always grabbing a handful of trail mix.
All right, yeah. Now everybody has to give their sneaky snacks. All right, mine is I pressured my family into buying a whole bottle of M&Ms. The big Costco M&Ms.
They're the best.
And I was like, I'm not going to eat this. We're having a party. We're going to put it out the party for people to have. No, I've basically eaten that whole thing.
Classic M&Ms are incredible.
Yeah. So Stan
Mars nailed it.
So Stan's grabbing trail mix. I'm grabbing sneaky snacking M&Ms. Shane.
Ooh, lately the Trader Joe's like fake pirate booty, like the lightly cheddared styrofoam.
Wow.
I don't know why it's so good.
How responsible of you.
It's so good.
Devin, are you a sneaky snacker?
Give me some extra toasty Cheez-Its.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dude, those are not bad. And
They're
everyone
good.
tells me I'm crazy.
No, they're good. Only
I
the
love
extra
them.
toasty ones, though.
Yeah.
Well, regular Cheez-Its I think are good too.
They're all good. Extra toasty, surprisingly good. All right, that takes us to White of the Reliquary, which is a black and a green for a creature. It's a rare. It's a 2/2. This is a callback to Knight of the Reliquary, of course. Vigilance. White of the Reliquary gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. You can also tap it to sacrifice another creature and search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, and then shuffle.
Did you guys know that Night of the Reliquary was in the season finale of The Walking Dead, apparently? Didn't know that.
What?
Is that how they ended up as a white?
Yeah.
As a walker?
That was a
Zombie
bad joke.
Knights.
Next.
That was part
next.
of the agreement to make the secret lair.
Yeah.
Wizards was like, fine, we'll make your trading cards, but you have to put one of our cards into your hit AMC channel television show.
It was weird that it was Ragavan, though. It's like zombie Ragavan. We're building the lore, the Ragalore. All right, what do we think of this card? So it's just a giant like creature in your graveyard payoff, but it also searches up lands. So are we using it in a way that we can't use Knight of the Reliquary already, or are we just trying to make a big beater with it? I assume it's probably the first one, but or are we just not using this card and we shouldn't have wasted time reading it?
I mean, I sort of just feel like a lot has to be going right for this to be a strong enough card for Modern, because it's pretty slow to stock your graveyard with enough creatures to make this like an efficient beater in Modern. Seems pretty challenging, so I do not know, but I don't think I'm going to be the first one to test it.
I was thinking about this more the other day, and so this card is powerful with, like, I think the one that comes to mind is Stitcher Supplier, because it's a thing that you want to sacrifice. It mills cards to the graveyard. It kind of pumps the white up a little bit. And then the other thing that I was thinking of is if you can, which you probably can do in Modern, you can build your mana base with enough swamps. This thing tutors up Witch's Cottage, which after you mill with Supplier, you can either get the Supplier back or get something that you milled off of the Supplier, which sounds kind of cool.
I mean, so many cards that we've mentioned and we, I think, still have to mention are like, this is great with Stitcher Supplier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this because one of the primary like mechanics and like deck building ideas they're trying to support in this set is like, sacrifice and graveyard recursion and graveyard synergies. And so it's like a question I do have later is kind of like, do we think there's enough to make a legitimate sort of sacrifice deck in Modern that's different than what we've had in the past? And I don't know, but it's definitely a theme. And if you have Citrus Suppliers and you love playing that card, you definitely have a lot to work with, for an FNM deck or, whatever the heck you want to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right. Writhing Chrysalis, we're going to skip. That is the last multicolor card, so we are on to artifacts.
Well, multi is somewhat dire in this set.
Not a lot of good ones.
Not a lot.
Yeah. There's not many artifacts in here either. There's only 5 from what I can see here on the list. So let's start. Disruptor Flute, I think, is a card worth talking about. 2 generic for an artifact that has flash. And it says, as Disruptor Flute enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name cost 3 more to cast, and activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. All right, so it's sort of like a Pithing Needle, and it's sort of a taxing effect at the same time. And it has flash and costs an extra mana. I think this is a card that people are definitely going to be interested in having for certain situations. I don't think it's great, personally. I think there's other things out there in the world that we might want instead, especially things that are saga searchable. But this card certainly has a lot of text for 2 mana.
Yeah, I actually like this card a lot because it's kind of like a split card of Meddling Mage or Pithing Needle, and those cards are very good in very drastically different matchups. And the fact that this is colorless means that every deck is going to have access to it, and I think that's maybe the biggest key to this card is just anybody can play it, and it is good in so many different matchups that, the more that I kind of think about this card, I would not be surprised if a lot of sideboards had this card.
Just 1 or 2 copies floating around?
Yeah. Yeah, I know you can't search it off Saga, so you're not going to cut your needle for it if you're a Saga deck, but on top of that, it still might be worth playing 1 or 2 copies.
Yeah, my only issue here is the history we have with artifact sideboard cards that cost more than 1. I don't think is super strong, especially as the format becomes more and more efficient and people are doing things earlier and earlier in the game. So this costing 2 has me a little bit concerned, but I think that it's definitely a card that has utility. If you can maybe control the game till you get there, or you have other options. So I think it's cool. It's a cool option.
Idol of False Gods and Solar Transformer are skips. All right, and that takes us to Vexing Bauble. Vexing Bauble is a generic mana for an artifact. Says, whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell, and then it has an activated ability that is 1 generic, tap, sacrifice Vexing Bauble, draw a card.
Where was this when Rhinos was everywhere? If this card was printed before Violent Outburst got banned, I maybe still could have been playing Outburst today.
Maybe you can be in the future. Maybe. So look, this card made people go totally wild on spoiler day, and I think when it came out, but I keep looking at it and I'm like, how good is this effect if I just don't have it when I need it? And when I need it is very early, so I have to draw it. So how many am I playing? It's a little bit where I'm like, I think this card is good and I think it's very good on rate, but am I playing 4 of these? I do think there's probably some deck out there that will play 4 of these just because you can sacrifice it to draw a card. But I'm very curious about who that is.
I wonder if there's a Murktide deck or another Delirium Tempo deck. That's who's playing this instead of Bauble against a deck where free mana is a thing. Whether that's Scam or a different Cascade deck or something else entirely.
Or is it just that the cost is so okay at 1 mana that it's because it costs 2 mana to draw a card off of this thing, right? Whereas Bauble costs 0, so you're giving up a lot by doing that. But maybe there's decks where it's just the cost is so okay that you just don't mind having these main deck. When I was thinking about it in that scenario, it was reminding me a little bit of Relica Progenitus that just used to be main deck and you just didn't care. Maybe in Tron or maybe in a Red Prison deck, you were just whatever. I like to draw a card. I like to have access to an artifact in the graveyard, and that's kind of what it is.
I mean, it's more than just pay a mana to draw a card. It's also pay mana to put an artifact in your graveyard. And
yes.
I think there's going to be the decks that get some benefit out of that. Possibly.
I think you have to.
Ideally.
You're right, Stan. You have to be doing that in order to make this card worth it, and you also have to be doing something a certain plan that makes it worth it over Bauble, Mishra's Bauble.
Yeah, I think part of the reason I like this card so much is it does have some utility off of Saga, but what's more important to me about this card is the fact that, so Void Mirror, the reason that people don't play Void Mirror against Scam is when, even if you're on the play, it's not fast enough before they do their grief thing. But if you're on the play, you can actually Vexing Bauble before they grief, and it's actually meaningful, and it feels like your sideboard card actually has text, whereas, it maybe didn't feel like that before. So I don't know if that means you want to play 4 copies in your sideboard, because like if it's a one of, you're not likely to have it in your opening hand against Scam. So it's like that weird balance where you want to play 4, but because it's tutable, you don't want to play 4. It's going to be hard to, or it's going to be interesting to see how many copies people end up playing.
But there certainly are a lot of free cards in Modern, as we've all come to talk about. There's more in this set. There's Evoke Elementals that are still good. There's
People still play Living End.
Yeah, there's just random stuff in lots of people's decks. Like you said, it could be a Cascade target. It could be somebody just playing something with Phyrexian mana. It could be, Summoners Pact out of Titan. It stops that as well. So there's lots of places that this stops. This even counters a Bauble, for example. You know what I mean?
Ooh, Bauble counter Bauble.
Yeah, exactly. It's Bauble counter Bauble. But there's lots of random things in lots of decks that cost 0 mana in one form or another. So,
yeah, fundamentally, this gets back to what I said earlier and what Devin, said as well, which is like this costs 1, Void Mirror costs 2, and the deck just gives you options you did not have before for a hate piece like this, and in that way, I think it'll have utility.
Yep.
Yeah, I know we're not a vintage podcast, but I think a lot of people's concern came from the vintage format because I don't know if you know this, but you don't have to spend mana to cast Black Lotus or Moxes.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
true.
People were up in arms about this in vintage, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's for a different podcast.
All right. Final artifact that we have is Winter Moon. 2 generic artifact. Players can't untap more than 1 non-basic land during their untap step. We have spoken about this card already, but this is pre-banned and historic, by the way, for what it's worth. I don't know if you saw that article. Yeah.
Oh, did they post an article?
Yeah, the 2 that I noticed on the list, like they pre-banned all the pitch elementals, they pre-banned Winter Moon, and they pre-banned Harbinger of the Tides. And
the elementals and the flares.
And the flares too. Yeah. They pre-banned a lot of the
Can you
all the
still
free cards.
open them in booster packs?
Because they're available in timeless. So yes.
Yeah.
They're just not available in historic.
Oh, okay.
But
So,
Winter Moon.
Dave,
Yeah.
we talked about this. I mean, I think Stan and Devin did as well. But when we talked about it, I think I was more high on it then than I am now.
Same.
Like, I think that this is going to see a lot of testing early. I'm not sure it'll be strong enough, right? I think it's either too hard to work with the symmetrical effect that it has, or honestly that it's like sort of too easy to play around. And it sort of just becomes like this, like, kneecapping effect on both players that doesn't actually stop what most people are trying to do, but just sort of makes things annoying. And certainly that you can design your deck or design your playing knowing that you have the Winter Moon in order to sort of play around that or make it more advantageous to you. But I'm not sure it is going to have the same effect as like Harbinger of the Tides or Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon or something like that. Enough where it's like, I can maybe win the game by playing this, and maybe that's enough to make it not as good as those 2 cards.
Yeah, the tricky thing, real quick, about moons or orbs, you have to keep in mind, winter effects, I suppose, is that your opponent has to have tapped their mana for them to be really disruptive. And so it can kind of mean, hey, do I really want to play this on turn 2 into open mana so that my opponent then has to use them? You know what I mean? Or do I wait for them to cast a spell and then drop it? So sometimes you kind of end up in this weird kind of like, when should I play that? This is digging in my deep core memories about playing Winter Orb. But yeah, I can hear what you guys are saying. Stan, thoughts?
I guess maybe I'm the highest on it still. And I think because it is only 2 mana and can have a taxing impact the way a moon effect does, I wonder if the old disruption plus a threat is actually easier with a card like this, where you can like tap for the Winter Moon more carefully, have additional mana up to cast the threat the next turn or the same turn, and actually do like a Blood Moon thing more aggressively than having to wait till turn 3 before you kind of ask a big question in your game.
Yeah,
I think my issue with this card, which I was initially pretty high on it as well, with everybody else. But the more that I think about it, if you kind of look at the big mana decks that people are playing in Modern right now, so Amulet Titan, this card does, I'm not going to say nothing against, but it's not great against them because most of the time they're operating on one land anyways because they have 2 amulets and a bounce land. They don't really care about needing to untap more than one land, and they have a couple of basics. Tron, which it's fine against Tron, but they can also, if they assemble Tron and tap out, they can just untap the tower, play another soul land, and still have 5 mana available. So it's like, it's good against Tron, but to an extent. And then the other issue that I have with the card is it feels like just every deck in Modern has, 1 to 2 basic lands, and if they just fetch them out early, like, what are you really gaining off of this? It's the same thing where it's like, if they fetch to play around Blood Moon, your Blood Moon's not doing that much. It's similar effect to this. But I think the upside is a little bit lower on this compared to Blood Moon. Now, the other upside, I guess, to this is that maybe it's more main deckable than Blood Moon because it doesn't necessarily like cut you off of your dual lands. Like you can untap one of your dual lands and still have access to more colors. But I don't know. I guess time will tell on this one. But I'm not as high on it now as I was earlier.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's interesting to me that it got pre-banned. They must think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
They said that the reason they were pre-banning it in Historic was because they didn't want effects that mess with people's mana that much to be available in Historic. But
there's no fetch lands in Historic, right? I don't think.
No, they banned these fetch lands too, as well, coming into it. So
makes sense.
Yeah. So we'll see. They clearly think the power level is there. I'm very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, but what do they know?
Yeah, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Shane, do you want to give me a break and start taking us through the lands?
Let's do the lands. We have Archway of Innovation. It's a land. Weird. It ETBs tapped unless you control an island. That's what all the archways are kind of templated like. So the color of the land, the color of the mana the land produces, ETBs tapped unless you control that. Basic. Tap, add blue. Blue mana tap. So effectively 2 mana. The next spell you cast this turn has Improvise, which means your artifacts can help cast that spell. So I think let's talk about the archways sort of generally. I think the archways are pretty good. Broadly, I think this one is perhaps not that good, but never really count out cheating on mana. But I mean, this potentially just goes into decks that are synergistic with it. We know that the Affinity deck in Modern is based around blue, so maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in this card for a minute, and then I realized that this makes you pay 2 in order to cheat on mana. And that is the thing that makes me think that this is probably not that good ultimately. I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if this was good in like Urza? But the thing is, Urza gives your artifacts the ability to be moxes, and then this costs 2 for you to do the same thing. And it's like, I don't think that's worth it. So,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Dave on this, where a lot of the cards that you would, like a lot of the expensive cards that you would want to play in Affinity are either like already have Affinity, Thought Monitor, Mirror Enforcer, etc., or they're cheap enough to where you're spending 2 mana on this plus the blue mana. Because Improvise, remember, you still have to pay colored mana. You can't, even if you have a blue artifact, you cannot use a blue artifact to have your blue like 4 mana spell reduced by a colored mana. You still have to pay the colored mana. So like Synthesizer, for example, you're spending a blue mana plus this to give your Synthesizer Improvise, but then you still have to spend a blue mana. That's 3 mana. You might as well just cast the Synthesizer as is. The one maybe kind of corner case scenario is like, I don't know how deep you want to go, but if you can generate enough game objects, you can just like, I'm thinking the Academy Manufacturer cookbook stuff, and then you can just give your Emrakul Improvise. Maybe that's too deep, but it probably has to be some kind of combo application with that.
I think it's the right level of deep if this card is good, though. You're right. Should we talk about the next one, Shane?
Please. Arena of Glory. ETBs tapped unless you control a mountain. Tap to add red, or red, tap, exert Arena of Glory, add red. If That mana is spent on a creature spell. It gains haste until end of turn. So, much like the Archway. Actually, there's only one Archway, right?
They're not called Archways.
I was talking about them. I was calling them Archways. They're not called
confused.
Archways. So let's forgive my mistake, listeners out there. So again, when I first saw this card, I was like, "This is some crazy ramp." All it costs you don't get to untap it. It's sort of like a red ramp land, and then I'm like, "Oh wait, no, it is not." Is the juice worth the squeeze here?
What I like about this card is it's not like you're mana neutral, right? You're spending a red mana and tapping this to get 2 red back. So you're not actually down on mana. And there's a couple of spots where like maybe you cast 2 red 1-drops, because if you cast 2 red 1-drops, they both have haste. You play this with like a Channeler and a Ragavan after that. The other thing I was thinking, and this is from a tweet that I saw Everett post, was Jeru and Hazaret, which is 2 red, white, 5/4, and then it doesn't have haste, but when it attacks, you get to like exile the top 6 and play one of those spells for free. And giving that card haste is very powerful because you get the attack trigger immediately. I don't know if there's something with that, but just the fact, what I like about this card is just the fact that it's mana neutral, and if you can cast multiple spells off of the red mana, you can give multiple things haste.
Yeah, I also think that's interesting. However, one of the best 1-drops already has haste. So it's like, okay, maybe
we can finally make Soul Scarred Mage good.
Yeah, exactly. I can attack with my 1/1 Dragon's Rage Channeler.
So I don't know. I think this card is fine. I think it's like priced very fairly. Like I think you get what you pay for here. I think it has, if your deck has a lot of mountains, and has creatures that you want to give haste, like it's kind of a no-brainer. But I don't think it's like blowing the doors off.
I actually think, thinking about it a little bit here as we're talking right now, that this is closer to be good in the case that Devin was describing via Spike. That it's kind of like what we said about the Archway, which was if it's a combo enabler, if you really want something to have haste for some reason, this is the card to use to do that.
Yeah, like it's not like a small ball card. It's a win card.
A huge swings card. Yeah.
This might finally make Primeval Titan playable.
Oh,
We've been waiting for that.
Nice.
All right, Bloodstained Mire, guys. I have to pay a life, and I go get a swamp or a mountain.
Why would you do that?
This seems questionable to me.
What if my deck is
thinning?
Blue green?
I think this is for deck thinning, right? But is deck thinning really worth 1 life? Anyway, Bountiful Landscape.
Well, Stan, if your deck is blue-green, boy, do I have a card for you. How about Bountiful Landscape?
Ooh, it also gives me red mana.
Yeah, this is perfect for Teamer Rhinos, baby.
I like that you don't have to pay a life when you sacrifice this one.
Exactly, right?
Perfect.
I'm maintaining my life total, protecting it for use later. Dave likes this card, so I'll read it. Oh, he doesn't like this card.
No, I don't like these cards. I just think I was kidding.
Oh, okay, good.
This is a common colorless. It's a whole site. There's 10 of these in this set.
Yes, there's 10 of them. So we get more cards.
This is called limited mana fixing.
Yeah, this is like the wildest mana fixing though. It's like use it for colorless. Go and get any of these 3 basic land types, or pay one of each of those colors to cycle it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything good here for anybody.
No. All right, we'll skip Bountiful and Contaminated Landscape and Deceptive Landscape. Flooded Strand. Again, who's playing Plains or Islands and paying 1 life to get one out of their deck? Foreboding Landscape, also skipping Monumental Hinge. Ugh. I mean, I almost don't want to read this because it's just so expensive. It's the ETBs unless you control the plains, tap-eyed plains. So the activated ability is 2 white, and tap. So effectively 5 mana. You get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a historic card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Probably EDH.
Definitely.
I'm guessing at that cost. Historic cards. Yeah.
Way too expensive.
We'll just sign that up to EDH.
At least it comes into play untapped, so if someday somebody really cares about this, they might have like a search fallback enabler that they would run as a one of, but it's very expensive. Very, very expensive.
All right, Perilous Landscape, skipping Polluted Delta, pretend I did the joke here. Seething and Shattered Landscape and Sheltering Landscape, all skips. Now we've got a good land. This is on many of the lists that I've seen in top 10s, Shifting Woodland, ETBs, tapped unless you control a forest. You can tap to add green. Delirium, 2 green, no tap. Shifting Woodland becomes a copy of target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. Activate only if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So there you go. This is good.
It's very good.
Yeah. So interestingly, you can use its own mana to become a copy of anything as well. So you could do this as early as turn 3 if you're not ramping ahead of time. As long as you have Delirium and you want something in your graveyard, then you untap and use it next turn, or use an activated ability, or some kind of thing that the whatever permanent card in your graveyard would have that doesn't require tapping. But yeah, you can do a lot with this. I mean, I am not creative enough to know the prime targets, but copying any permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn seems pretty good.
Yeah, this is what's funny to me about this card is it turns out that the best of the cycle is the only one that doesn't have the tap ability. It's almost almost like that was intentional. But yeah, there's some cool stuff you can do with milling over Omniscience and getting Delirium, making this an Omniscience, and I'm sure you can probably find some way to kill them from there. And that's kind of that's the best application that I've seen so far. I really do think that if you're going out of your way to spend 4 mana on this and like having the Delirium setup, you kind of have to be doing combo stuff. Like this is not really a fair card to me. I think it was Mason who was talking about this. It's like talking about example of copying your Tarmogoyf, and I don't think we're doing that with this card.
What about something in between where we're copying our One Ring at instant speed at the end of our opponent's turn?
You can do that.
Because it does retain the burden counters. So, you put a counter on it, it stays, you don't pay any life with it. When you tap it, you yada, yada, yada.
Oh, I see. And then you do it over and over again. I got you.
Yes. Yeah, you do it over and over again whenever you can spare the 4 mana. And I was going to say, it doesn't say at the beginning of your end step, so you can't do that trick where you activate it during the end step, then have a ring during the next turn. Yep. I guess one weird thing about this, like, when this becomes a copy of a creature, it can attack, right? Like it doesn't require haste to do that because the land has already been in play, so it doesn't have summoning sickness. So even when it becomes a copy, it's able to attack. Because that was a little weird for me when I was like, wait. Yeah, I don't think people are playing this mostly for value, though. I think this is another thing that's like a combo piece that somebody's going to have a lot of fun brewing around.
Yeah, I mean, you could even do like mill over Emrakul, trigger on the stack, because it doesn't say sorcery only, right? Activate format card. Yeah, so you can go mill over Emrakul, trigger on the shuffle trigger on the stack, copy Emrakul. So yeah, there's definitely some combo potential here. I like this card a lot. I think it is the most aggressively costed of the cycle, and one that is. I mean, I had it in my top 10. I think it's very good.
I got one last wild one here. I remember if our resident lover of this deck, Jason from the Discord, mentioned this. Does this Calibrated Blast, where you put like a 15 drop into your graveyard and then this is a backup plan for hitting somebody if you're not blasting, or I don't know.
I don't hate it.
You can put a lot of cards.
I guess the only issue is Blast doesn't mill the cards, right? I think it shuffles them.
Yeah, it shuffles them. So you'd have to be getting it in the graveyard some other way, I guess. Yeah.
And even in existing strategies, right, that where you don't need to be particularly creative and, go crazy with Omniscience I think this just Yogs, right?
Just get Yawgmoth back.
Yeah, just Yogs.
For 4.
Play 1.
Yeah.
A lot of utility, fairly reasonable cost. I think it's definitely going to see some play and some experimentation. Might do something broken, might do something fair. I think there's a lot of play here.
This card is good. I think this is top 10 of the set for sure, in my mind. Not that I'm going to lay out what that top 10 is, but I think it's one of the best cards in the set, definitely.
Well, I mean, now you have to.
I can't just throw around rankings like they do on like football podcasts where it's like, there's 27 guys in their top 15 when they bring it up casually.
We've got a Snow-Covered Wastes. Sweet. We've got Spymaster's Vault.
This is the black one of these lands. Yeah, I don't think it matters.
The black one. Yeah, it's such a weird thing. Target creature you control connives X, or X is the number of creatures that died this turn. I don't know.
It's intriguing to me because the activation cost is so cheap, but also how are you, like, I guess how are you getting multiple things to die? It's got to be sack outlets, right? With like Carrion Feeder, Gravecrawler, that kind of stuff.
Stitcher's Supplier.
Maybe if you're comboing with that, but it seems like a lot of work for maybe not the biggest payoff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to kill a lot of creatures in Dredge, right? So it's like, that's what I imagine is like something that you can really discard. You know, you really are, it's a discard payoff more than anything else.
If only Dread Return were legal.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, unfortunately, no.
Or we got a couple more landscapes. Then we got Ugin's Labyrinth. I feel like we've said a lot about this card already. You probably don't even need me to read it, but
I mean, maybe this is spoiling your awards later, or maybe it's not even interesting to talk about it. Does anybody have this not in their top 5? In their mental top 5 of cards in the set?
I honestly don't think I do.
Okay.
I think it's outside. I mean, I'll talk about it now. I think this is incredible ceiling, right? And I think that there's ways to build decks that use this incredibly well. Like, I mean, who doesn't want Ancient Tomb, I believe is the name of the card?
Oh, there's several. City of Traders, Ancient Tomb. Yeah.
So who doesn't want one of those lands in their modern deck? But it does sort of, it requires deck building that is pretty significant. And if it doesn't go well, then you can be a little bit hamstrung. I don't know. I think like high upside, the floor is like is fine. It still is a land that adds colorless mana, but I don't know. I think like this week we could be only seeing everything through Stan's rose-colored sunglasses and not necessarily through the reality of what modern is.
I love those glasses.
But we also don't know what modern is now because we have MH3.
Stan, do you have any thoughts about this card before we get off it?
I mean, I think it's pretty good.
Fair.
It's pretty good.
It looks pretty good to me.
It's not. I mean, this is not bad. I'm just sort of hedging and being like, I think we might have 5 cooler cards, but
I guess it's the question is this the Urza Saga of the set? Like, is this just the best land we have? And
I would
potentially
say so.
like format staple land for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think it's harder to use than Saga, but
the upside on this card is just so high. I mean, there is definitely deck building restrictions. Weirdly enough, the more that I kind of think about it, I mean, it's obviously going to be good in Eldrazi, but the Eldrazi deck doesn't necessarily want to play a lot of expensive cards to the point where, like, yeah, All Is Dust is fine. You have I forget the name, but the one that you can reveal from your opening hand to look at the top 4.
Yeah, Breaker.
Those are like, the Breaker, or Devour.
I think it's Breaker. Yeah.
Something like that. But
Devourer,
yeah, you have those 2 cards that are both very good. But I almost think this might end up being better in Affinity because Affinity kind of wants to play more. They want to play all the Mirror Enforcers already because of Synthesizer and all this stuff. And it almost feels to me that maybe that's the home where it ends up. Even though everybody's going to try it in Eldrazi, I think it might end up being a little bit better in Affinity than it. Not better in Affinity than in Eldrazi, but more consistent because they already want to play those cards.
Yeah, I think you have to go bigger, and with Affinity, you're actually going smaller.
You mean with Eldrazi or with Affinity?
With Affinity.
Okay.
So, like, you're playing the 7 mana cards, but they're effectively cheaper, and so you still get to play, like, the game plan, like Devin's getting at.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not just stuck with a bunch of All Is Dust and other 7 mana cards you can't cast.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to play, like, big mid-range Eldrazi or something like that, you're just going to get, ran over more often than not, or be stuck with like a really clumsy hand, or I think there's just a lot of things that can go wrong there.
The Eldrazi decks that I think I'm going to start with that I'm more interested in are the ones that have Mimic and Lower Curve, where because you have the 8 soul lands, it makes Mimic a lot better. And if you can, like, you just have those draws where it's turn 1 Mimic, turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer, like, those draws are still going to be really good.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got Urza's Cave. I don't think this sees play. Windswept Heath, Wooded Foothills. I don't think those see play. Just too expensive on your life total.
Yeah.
Now, we are into the like flip cards. Stanislav, Devin, one of you want to take over here?
I can do it.
Run with it,
All
baby.
right. So the first flip card that we are going to talk about, I think this one's good enough to talk about. This is Johnny Nicodle Pariah. So the front half of this card, of course, you make me do the flip card, so now I'm going to pull up the back half.
So I got it.
All right.
I'll flip it for you.
All right, the front side, let's go back. 2 mana, 1/2. When a Johnny Nicodle Pariah enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. Whenever one or more other cats you control die, you may exile a Johnny, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. And the backside is a Johnny Nicodle Avenger. It's a planeswalker that starts with 3 loyalty. You can +2 to put a counter on each cat you control. You can 0 to make a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. When you do, if you control a red permanent other than a Johnny, he deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. And then you can -4 to have each opponent choose an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control. Unfortunate wording there. And sacrifices the rest. A lot of words, a lot of stuff going on here. Very good with sacrifice outlets. So the best things to pair this with are like Witch's Oven, I guess like Deadly Dispute maybe, but that one's probably too expensive. But just the natural curve of turn 1 Oven, turn 2 this, sack the cat token, immediately flip a Johnny. Sounds like there's maybe something there. What do you guys think?
I don't hate this card at all, but like even if it's working, I'm like, is this really like a modern power level deck that we're building, like using a Johnny? And I don't know.
I feel similar. I feel like this card might be a little too slow or too hard to find something to do with it in Modern. Unless you're doing some kind of token strategy, then I feel like maybe you can have a payoff with the 0. Maybe this goes in a Boros Convoke style deck, like it's enough to power up. We've said this several times, like powering up Cold Rebirth and Gleeful Demolition. This might be another thing that does that. Now, you don't have the sack outlet for that, Devin, but maybe there's a way to make that happen. But they're not cats, so you don't get anything off the +2. It's more about making that 0 into something for them. I don't know.
Well, what's funny is, so I did mention Witch's Oven, right? So you go turn 1 Witch's Oven, turn 2 a Johnny. Culture Familiar is also a cat.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying.
You got a cat.
It is a cat. Just like I don't know. In that scenario where your turn 1, you're either playing Oven or Carrion Feeder. That's the other sack outlet that I had in mind. Like turn 2, Johnny, sack the cat, immediately flip 0, make a 2/1. You have a Planeswalker, 2 bodies, and either an Oven or a Feeder. Like that's a lot of stuff on turn 2. Even if you're not dealing damage off of the 0, it still seems pretty powerful enough. And then like the next turn, you can +2 to put counters on all of your, the 2/1 you just made and the Johnny. I feel like that start seems very powerful. If you're not if you don't have a sack outlet on 1, I think it's bad. But in the context of having a sack outlet on 1, it seems like it's probably good enough.
Yeah, and you can Saga Oven, so that's something. I don't know.
That was Johnny. So there's a whole bunch of DFCs. Do you guys you want to talk about these individually?
I kind of want to talk about them all at once, I guess, the more that I think about it. There's the DFCs are. Let's read the template for them really quickly, and then maybe we just talk about the ones that we like. The template for these is basically there's 2 of each of these that are, as blank land enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. So it has the mythic entry trigger that Zendikar, return, whatever. The most recent Zendikar set had for their land. So you can choose to have this enter untapped, and there's 2 of each color. They're all single color. There's 2 white ones, 2 blue ones, etc. And they're all different things on the back. There's instants, sorceries, creatures. There's all kinds of different stuff on the other side of the DSC. I like a couple of these. I don't feel like any of these really smashed it, but I think they're all kind of like good things to have around. But
these are safe.
Yeah.
These are safe.
At a base level, well, you say safe, but at a base level, they only power up. Well, I mean, in theory, they only power up kind of degenerate decks like Belcher and Oopsal spells. So I don't know if safe is necessarily the word that I would use to describe there, because you're giving those decks access to more, not only untapped lands, but you're giving them more flexibility in their mana base.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if any of these, any of the front sides necessarily matter all that much in either Belcher or Oops, but there's maybe a couple of them.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. These are simultaneously too safe and too messed up. because you can just use them in a degenerate deck basically just because of the way the card is designed. And then there's nothing that's really amazing for any of the decks that just want to play these as like fair cards. So I do kind of feel like there's a shot that this could lead to, Belcher or Oops eating another ban, basically because they're just going to get so much better because of more access to untapped mana. I think that is definitely possible. But anyway, okay, Belcher and Oops aside.
Yep.
Devin, what's one that you would want to start with that you think is actually a playable card?
The one that I actually I like the most is Sink into Stupor. So this is so it's same template on the backside. The front side is 1 blue instant, return target spell or non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. The reason I like this card so much, again, I hate to go back to the Belcher Oops context, but just giving them a 3-mana boomerang to bounce any hate permanent, like you just go end step, bounce your Leyline of the Void, untap, cast my Balustrade Spires, or bounce your Leyline of the Sanctity, untap, cast my Goblin Char Belchers.
Right.
I think that has potential, and it's also can act as a counterspell, right? It hits spells or non-land permanent, so very flexible. There's a possibility that this goes into non-combo decks, but maybe.
I mean, isn't this just cheaper than Otawara? Like, honestly,
Yeah.
And it has more utility than Otawara, and there are decks that play Otawara I guess because it's a single blue, Otawara might be a little bit easier, but this comes into play untapped. You can use it for whatever you want. It costs less than 4 all the time, and it can be a spell or a non-land permanent. And so when I read that a little bit, I was like, well, isn't this just better than that? But I don't know if it really, really is.
And it pitches to Force and Subtleties.
Yeah, and Otawara doesn't. So I don't know. That caught on my radar just because of that.
Yeah, the ones that are the most priced to move are maybe like the cheaper ones. They're good because they're lands that can pitch to your cards.
Sam, what do you think as an Otawaran?
That's a really interesting observation regarding the mana cost and the comparison, though I also feel like a lot of Otawara's value is that it can't be griefed or thought seized.
It's a great point, too.
Even if they know you have it, like, you just can't interact with it in hand, really. But this has a ton of utility, so maybe this just takes up a land slot instead.
Yeah. All right, does anybody have another one that they think is decent?
I think Witch Enchanter is like fine. That's the white one. That's like a disenchant.
Yeah.
It's a 2/2 for 3 and a white. When it ETBs, destroy target artifact or enchantment and opponent controls. So it's a good bailout, right? Like you've got a land on one side, you've got 2/2 disenchanter on the other side. Not terrible.
Yeah.
Disenchanter? I think you meant Witch. Yeah. Oh, we're not gonna do that bit. What I do like about that one specifically, real quick, is it's tutorable off of Recruiter. So Recruiter can fetch it, so that means your Recruiter can now fetch a land, and it's good with Ephemerate.
No, interesting. I'm going to tell you a couple that I think are pretty cool that are almost destined to not be good. I like Fell the Profane, which is just 2 generic black, destroy target creature or planeswalker. It's a swamp on the back. I feel like that could be good in Shadow. I've played certainly plenty of the whatever the black card is, where you like get to bring a shadow back if you pay 4, and it's like maybe just having a bonus extra, removal spell in your hand is a little better than having that effect. I also like Sundering Eruption, which is a Stone Rain. It's destroy target land for 2 generic and a red, and it says its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffled, and creatures without flying can't block this turn. I don't mind Falter stuck to a land.
This is more than fine, I think.
Okay.
It's got some utility.
I love it in like Prowess, just being like, oh, guess what? I'm going to falter you and you can't block. Because when I play against, those decks against like Tron, the big problem that I have with those things is them stabilizing with a big blocker on like turn 4. And if they spend their mana doing that and my response is this card, just get to sidestep everything, it's great. This is like a big, I hate Wormcoil Engine card.
This card's really good in the Belcher Mirror.
Oh, because they can't go get a land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of want untap red lands anyways, so. Any other ones? I think that's pretty much all that I had.
I love the side of you guys. The side of you that's trying to make these cards work.
We're trying, Stan. We're always trying to make these cards.
I mean,
work.
initially when I put them on the sheet that we have, I wrote them all as just DFC category. I mean, we're going to talk about them, but I guess there's a couple interesting ones.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's get back to Planeswalkers now. We'll so that's all the monocolor DFCs. We won't digress about any of those.
Yep.
That takes us back to card 242, Tamiyo, Devin.
All right, Tamiyo, Inquisitive Student. This is single blue mana for an 0/3 legendary creature, Moonfolk Wizard. It's got flying. When it attacks, you investigate. And then when you draw your third card in a turn, exile Tamiyo, then return her to the battlefield transformed. And the flip side is Tamiyo, Seasoned Scholar. It's got 2 loyalty, +2 until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -1/-0. -3 to return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a green card, add 1 mana of any color. And then -7, which reads, you win the game. Oh, sorry, I was reading it wrong. Draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your library. Rounded up, you get an emblem with. You have no maximum hand size.
Mm-hmm.
What's really sick about Tamiyo, and I think what a lot of people have talked about, is if you open on this in Mishra's Bauble, you can flip it on turn 2. So you go cast Bauble on 1, play Tamiyo. You Bauble on their turn, right? So untap on your second turn, draw off the Bauble. That's your first card. Draw off return as second card. Attack with Tamiyo, investigate, play second land, pop Clue. That's your third card. And that's turn 2, flip Tamiyo. Now, the question is that good? Maybe. It does protect itself. The -3 is not super relevant in that situation because you won't have anything to get back, plus it won't have enough loyalty. But, I mean, the -7 is powerful enough that I think that is a really good sequence. So I think it's got potential.
Yeah, so is that what we're doing here? Is it just like, flip it as fast as possible, start plussing it. Hopefully that's enough to protect her loyalty and then get to the -7 and go ham, right? My concern here is that the +2 is not, it's only -1, -0, right? So it's not particularly super powerful. There's plenty of creatures who can attack for more than that pretty early on. It does, I guess, sort of gain you life, but that's always been, I think a feature of Planeswalkers, not necessarily why you play them. I just have a hard time trying to figure out what I'm doing with this card, even if I do get it down fast, because the plus is, I think, under average. It is a +2. It gets it to 4 loyalty. But, so many creatures can just swing in and put this back at 2. Like I said, it buys you time, but do I really care? There seems like a lot of things going right pretty early on for me to flip this early. If I'm flipping it late, it's, maybe the -3 is enough. I don't know. I don't have a lot that I'm liking about the design of this card. Enough to want to contort my strategy around to using it, and I don't even know what it's doing in the already existing strategies that can potentially try to take advantage of it. But I could be missing something very obvious.
I see 2 possible applications, thinking about your question, Shane. One is just basically playing it instead of Ragavan as like your early value generating threat in a tempo deck where you're sure using the plus ability to slow down your opponent's creatures, but you're also just playing removal spells, whether it's like prismatic endings or unholy heats or what have you. And then you're winning the game with the -7 instead of winning the game with whatever Ragavan flips over. I think is kind of one use case. The other one I see is like another approach to a Storm deck where you are going to flip it really easily because you're playing Storm and have tons of cantrips, and then also eventually you get to -7 and just winning the game because you draw all of your combo cards.
It's got to be a combo that doesn't cost a lot of mana, though, right? I would think.
Or that generates a bunch of mana with rituals.
Yeah. That does make sense to me.
Dave, any thoughts?
I have no thoughts about this card.
No?
This card is like too opaque to me. I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go or who it's going to be.
I agree, though, that like I'm doing my best here because I see a lot of excitement for this card and I don't fully understand it. I'm just trying to like give it the benefit of the doubt somewhere.
Yeah.
Are you playing devil's advocate? Are you just asking questions?
Someone's
I didn't see any.
some
I didn't hear any
podcast is
questions.
going to do it.
It's sort of like, it feels just kind of like that Jace from the last set to me again, where it's just like, oh, you can get Jace really fast. It's like, well, what am I doing with it?
Do you know how expensive this card is on pre-order?
A lot, probably.
$47.
$35. This card is $35, supposedly. There's no way. There's just no way.
It's probably busted in EDH, right? It's a 1-mana commander.
I mean, that's true. I don't know anything about
EDH
EDH
players
though.
like drawing cards. Anyways.
Onward.
All right, so we're gonna skip the rest of these DFCs. The next Planeswalker we would like to discuss is Sorin of House Markov. This is black and a colorless for a 1/4 lifelink. It has Extort, which we'll read that one quickly because it's been a while. Whenever you cast a spell, you can pay a white or a black. If you do, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, exile Sorin and flip it. And Sorin transforms into Sorin Ravenous Neonate. This is 3 starting loyalty, also has Extort, +2, make a food, -1, deals damage equal to the amount of life you gain this turn to any target, and then -6, gain control of a creature. It becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Put a lifelink counter on it if you control a white permanent other than that creature or Sorin.
Wow, that last line there is really contorting to like have a certain situation be that you have to play this with white creatures, okay, guys?
If it's Tuesday and it's 5 o'clock or whatever.
It's like one of those baseball stats you see up where they're like, this player excels in games that are after 9 p.m. when it's raining.
Yeah. No, but so the flipping gaining 3 life is not really that difficult because you just play it with Asmo and make foods. I think that's the best or the easiest application that I can see for this card, where you already want to play Cookbook and Asmo. Cookbook makes foods, you gain a lot of life, they flip Sorin. Outside of that, I don't know. I see a lot of hype for this card, but other than that specific application, I'm not sure what else you're doing with this.
Yeah, I like the design of this card more than I think I like the execution. Because, it's like much like a Johnny to me, and I like it more than a Johnny, but it just is like, what am I really doing to build around Sorin of House Markov in Modern?
All I have to say about this one is I love the art.
It's a good piece of art.
The picture of him in this like giant
lonely
chair.
boy at the table.
Yeah,
God, I'm so sick of my formal dinners. I have to wear a scarf.
The cravat.
It's very like Wes Anderson to me. Like it's sort of like framed. He's centered in there, and then there's these people around him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's played by Saoirse Ronan.
Yes, exactly.
Every time anyone at the table talks, it focuses on their face.
Right.
For 0.7 seconds.
Second, yeah. All right. Wow. Sorin, I people love it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling really any of these flip walkers except for one. But let's go to the next one, Devin.
Next one is Ral Monsoon Mage. Red and a colorless for a 1/3 legendary human wizard. It says instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell during your turn, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Ral deals 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, very important next 2 words, you may exile Ral. If you do, return him to the battlefield transformed. And the flip side is Ral Leyline Prodigy. So it's 2 loyalty, but not really. It also enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on him for each instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn. +1, it's a lot of words. Until your next turn, instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. -2, Ral deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. Draw a card if you control a blue permanent other than Ral. And then -8, exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may cast instant and sorcery spells from among them this turn without paying their mana costs. So this is cool because it's a Storm Enabler on the front side, but also a win condition on the back side. So it's kind of like the whole package, everything you would ever want out of your Baral or Goblin Electromancer. And that's really the only application I see here.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to be storming with this card, but it does seem like a very good enabler for Storm decks.
Yeah, Stan pointed out that to us when we talked about it before, and I'm into it. I mean, I was just saying I only like one of the flip walkers. I wasn't really talking about this one, but I do like that this one, the win case is much more clear, right? It's like, hey, what you're going to do is you're going to do as many instants and sorceries until you can flip it and at -8 at the same time, just like you suggested last time you were on, Stan, and I think that is what it is.
Cosine.
Will it be good?
Shane,
I don't
anything?
think so, but
I don't know. Like, I'm not a storm mage. I'm not even sure this actually storms if storm comes back, but we talked about this card. I think it's pretty cool. I'm glad it exists.
All right.
yeah,
For now.
The next one, I think the only other flip blocker we haven't discussed, and I'm guessing based on the ones we've talked about, this is probably the one that Dave likes.
Yeah.
So this is Grist Voracious Larva. This is a green for a 1/2 Death Touch. I will note, I think it's important they made it a 1/2 because they clearly didn't want it to die to Bowmasters. Whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it entered from your graveyard or if you cast it from your graveyard, you may pay a green. If you do, exile Grist and return it to the battlefield transformed. The black side is Grist, the Plague Swarm. Starts with 3 loyalty. You can +1 to make a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill 2 cards, and you put a Death Touch counter on the token if a black card was milled this way. A -2 to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and then -6 for each creature in your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 black and green insect. So, as the name would suggest, this one seems like a pretty easy slam dunk for Yawgmoth decks, and quite good in those decks.
this card is just super good. Like, on rate, it's very good. It's very easy in Yawgmoth deck to bring it back as a Planeswalker really quickly if you want. It's also, for some reason you want it to have Death Touch. That's a nice thing as well, because it can trade up on mana if for some reason somebody attacks into you or something like that. It's just a good card. This is the one that I read and go, oh yeah, that's a good card.
Yeah, what I like about it too is the old Grist didn't have the disenchant mode, so it's like you kind of get both angles covered, where you get to destroy creatures or planeswalkers with the first one. Now you get to cover artifacts or enchantments, so it almost seems like you have everything covered. You can chord for this for 1 mana, which you had to do for 3 for the other Grist, so it seems very good.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say about it other than they made a good card. It's 1 mana, good card.
Good card, good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so just in case you guys didn't have enough, listeners at home did not have enough DFCs, we got more for you. Do we want to, Dave, you want to talk about these ones?
I just want to say, do we all agree that we don't think any of these are playable? Or
no, I don't think so.
I don't think.
Well, there is one.
There's one that I think we could talk about, but let's keep in mind these are dual lands. There's 10 of them, but they all come into play tapped. And I don't think any of the spells are aggressively costing us enough for us to really look at seriously outside of the Belcher oops thing that Devin was talking about, which still seems unlikely because the thing that Belcher was really into was having more untapped lands, not having access to more tapped lands. So I'm not buying any of these in Constructed except for one. And which one is that, Devin?
The only one that I think is potentially priced to move is Waterlogged Teachings. So this is 3 and a hybrid blue-black instant. Search for an instant card or a card with flash. Reveal it, put into your hand, then shuffle. Backside is blue-black land, ETB tapped. I just like that this pitches to everything. Subtlety, grief, force negation. I think that it being a gold card means that it might have some applications there. And, it's a land that later in the game, if you draw it, can search for... Trying to think of, any powerful instants or cards with flash. Like, it can search for a subtlety. That's kind of cool. I'm sure there's some other things you want to do if there's like a blue-black control deck. But yeah, most of these are pretty bad. And even this one is not great itself. I just think that maybe there's something there.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Cool.
All right. We are done with the new cards in the set.
Reprints time.
Now we have...
This is the perfect time for Stan, because there's a lot of green cards.
So we got 40 reprint cards to talk about that are stuck here at the end of the set from all kinds of places. Many of them are commander cards that are being moved into modern for the first time. Others are just old cards that are cool.
Some downshifts that I'm very upset about.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, starting with white new cards. Angel of the Ruins. It plane cycles. That's really why we're going to talk about this card, because it plane cycles 5 white for artifact creature angel. It's a 5/7 flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target creatures and or enchantments. Cool to do, not for 7 mana, but it does plain cycle for 2. And I guess Living End maybe wants white sources now for Ardent Plea?
Yeah, so it blows up artifacts or enchantments, just a quick note there. But yeah, like you mentioned, plain cycling, just putting us into your graveyard for Living End. It's weird. I initially thought that this was potentially something you wanted for Living End, but then I realized, thinking about it more, the artifacts and enchantments you want to kill, you need to kill them before you can resolve a Living End. So maybe it's actually not as good as I initially thought it was, even though it's a pretty big body.
Yeah, I mean, I guess having an option here that is maybe better than, now that Stan said, if it wants white for Ardent Plea, and also, this card is kind of better than the, it's better than the Eagles, probably, that do have plain cycling from the Lord of the Rings set. So, I'd say you could put this in the universe of Living End options and maybe use it and maybe not. But that's what it is. It's a Living End card.
The Living End box.
Yeah.
Up next, Decree of Justice, I believe, is a skip.
It is, although, Devin, this used to be a mega rare. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
This used to be one of the best cards in Standard, and they made it an uncommon.
Whoa.
They just, look how they massacred my boy.
Wild.
Poor Decree of Justice buyers. Up next is Distinguished Conjure. That's a skip. Orm's Chant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Single white for an instant. It does have kicker for more white mana. Target player can't cast spells this turn. If the spell is kicked, creatures can't attack this turn.
Yeah, I think this card sees play. I don't think it's like an Isochron Scepter thing, although, if you want to be cute, sure. I just think I think it's just it's a good silence, and there's ways to use it. I know that silence is not like a very popular card in Modern. I think this does the job even better, potentially.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, it's like a strict upgrade to silence, but how many decks want silence? It's more of a sideboard card, and it's going to be a reasonable sideboard card. But yeah, you're not doing Scepter Chant stuff in 2024. That's not happening.
Are we doing Recruiter of the Guard stuff in 2024? That's what I want to know. 2 and a white for a 1/1 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature with toughness 2 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. I've heard tell of Orzhov Scam.
Yeah, I think that was so Spike and Dingo did their MH2 testing preview stream where they're playing with proxies, and I think that was one of the decks that they tried. I kind of hadn't realized that Recruiter got both Solitude and Grief, where, we saw Imperial Recruiter in the last Horizon set, but that one only searched for power 2 or less. And it turns out there's a lot more creatures that have more than 2 power that don't have a lot of toughness, like those two. This can find Flicker Wisp, which can set up some Death and Taxes stuff with Aether Vial, where you flicker this in, or you flicker this out, give the Recruiter again, go get your Solitude. There's definitely some Death and Taxes applications. And also with Primal Prayers, which is the Energy Allurin, just casting this for free, going to get your Guide of Souls to help the energy chain. It seems like this card has a lot of applications.
You know what else it fetches is Shardless Agent. Dare I say, let's try it?
Yeah, I'll have to get back on that one. We're gonna
Turn 4 Footfalls. That's pretty good.
Put that one in the oven for a little bit. Let it simmer.
I love that you're always looking for it. You know what Imperial Recruiter fetches, though, Stan? Shardless Agent.
Shardless Agent
as well. Let's go back. Let's go back. We have to go back. Get Imperial Recruiter in there.
I mean, I was high on Imperial Recruiter when we did MH2. I think it essentially did stone nothing. I know this is a different card, but I have similar fears. But it's in a better color for this type of effect than red. But
yeah, and I think one of the main reasons is what Devin touched on earlier, where it was Orzhov Scam, that kind of thing. Having this card with Ephemerate around is okay, so I ephemerate my whatever, then I put this into play, or I had this in play already, and then you get to, if they kill your Solitude or whatever, you get to go and get another Grief and Solitude immediately off the Ephemerate, so you get a little more of using all of the pieces of the Buffalo there. But I think this is a cool splashy card, and we will see where it goes. I'm a little bit unsure if it's better than Imperial Recruiter ultimately, though, Shane.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's more chops here for sure.
I don't think it gets play in a Death and Taxes style deck because I'm not sure that is going to happen in Modern unless the white.
Is that new 2/2?
That 2/2, yeah, the like White Orchid Spirit or whatever is way better than I think it is, which is a card I really want to be good, but I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, I think the pieces are there for Death and Taxes, but the thing that's holding Death and Taxes back is the fact that it's Death and Taxes and not necessarily the power level of the cards. And
yeah. I'm going to take the next card. Stan had to step away for a second. Savine's Reclamation, 2 generic and a white for a sorcery that says return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, you may copy this spell and choose a new target for the copy. So this is a 4-for-1 kind of thing, a 3-for-1 kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing? What are we doing here?
it's weird because I know this card sees a lot of play in Legacy, and as I'm saying this, I'm going to look up a recent Legacy list with it because, I know the card is powerful, but I'm not exactly sure what you are supposed to do with it. It looks like the Legacy decks maybe play like 1 or 2 copies, and they're getting back like Teferis, and I think they also maybe play Spellseeker, and they have some ways to utilize it. But yeah, really, it's just kind of like a late game value engine sort of thing, where you can get back Eternal Witness get back Ephemerate, or Witness get back the Reclamation to do it again, not to flash it back. Getting back Teferi, you can also plus Teferi to do this on their turn, where maybe that's something you could do. So yeah, I assume the card is in that Bant Blink shell with Teferi, Witness, Ephemerate, but I don't really know what the rest of that deck would look like is the thing.
Yeah. You can also always mill this and then just not worry about having to cast the front end of it and just get the 2 value off of the back, and that's kind of a nice payoff if you're putting cards in the graveyard, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, powerful card. Lots of stuff happening.
Stands back.
You talked about Savine's Reclamation without me.
We did. I'm sorry. I know that you love that card, but you're just going to have to hear what we have to say when you listen to the episode.
I just have a quick question about it, because I know it's a good card in Cube, but it's a commander card. Did it ever see Vintage Legacy play? Was there a previous use case for it?
Yes.
People have been playing it in Legacy, but they're mostly playing it as a one of, just as this really late game value engine. They're not building their whole deck around it.
Okay.
That's what I've been seeing.
Cool. All right, so I think we are skipping Estrid's Invocation as well as Deep Analysis to get to Kappa Cannoneer. I mean, we've talked about this card a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to go
has.
more, but it's here. This is where it is on the list.
We're curious and excited. It looks pretty
good.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy your Precon EDH decks.
Is this coming to Precon?
I wonder if that Eldrazi one is still expensive.
Yeah, this was originally printed in a Precon, in a Neon Dynasty EDH Precon. Yeah.
That's where it came from. That's why it was expensive.
I mean, Reform, probably too cute, right? Too cute. We're not going to talk about it. Shrieking Drake, that single blue Drake. It's a 1/1. It flies. It's a flying man that, when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand.
Does this just go infinite with the primal thing on its own, or I guess you need the Soul Guard, just the Soul Warden in play too, huh?
Guide of Souls. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have Guide of Souls, this and that, it goes infinite.
Yeah, and what's nice about that is I actually didn't even realize Shrieking Drake was in the set. I think it was one of those ones that was spoiled literal last minute. Mm-hmm. And as we're talking about it, this is the first time that I'm learning it's in the set. And what's cool about Shrieking Drake is it is fetchable off of Ranger Captain. So with Primal Prayers, Ranger Captain can now find both Drake and Guide of Souls. So Ranger Captain just turns into cast it for free off of the Allurin, get either combo piece, cast the other combo piece for free, and bang, you're good to go. Well, you can also Shrieking Drake to pick up the Ranger Captain and then cast it again for free to go get the other half of the combo.
Yeah, that's the big move, I think, there.
Oh, boy.
This card looks totally dumb, but I think it could be part of the whole, that whole
If it's
combo.
good, it will be in the Allurin deck for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just love that they went back to Visions and got this completely worthless card that nobody has ever done anything much else with and said, you know what? You might need this.
Now's its time.
Yeah, now's the time.
All right, up next is Buried Alive. 2 black for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards. Put them into your graveyard, then shuffle.
I cannot believe this card for some reason. I can't believe that this card is in Modern now.
We never thought we'd get it.
Mana.
Yeah, it's 2 and a
3
black.
mana.
3 is a lot of mana.
Yeah. I just used to love to play it. Used to go get my Nether
it's a sweet
Spirits
card.
or whatever, get all 3 of them in there, and then they would come out of the graveyard and get people for 1.
Nether Spirit is in Modern, right?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You know what else is in Modern? Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah, imagine this. You go turn 2, Pyretic Ritual, Manamorphose, add a black, cast Buried Alive. That's 3 spells.
Ta-da!
Bang. Attack you for 9. I mean, yeah, the other application was like, you can go get 2 Prized Amalgams and a Narcomoeba, which is just kind of advanced rhinos where you're putting 7 power into play for 3 mana, which I don't know if that's good, but it like does give you, it gives you a blue creature for your Flare of Denial guaranteed, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I think if this card is good, it's going to be in one of those 2 applications and probably not much else past that.
You don't think Goryo's doesn't fit to go and search stuff for Goryo's
Too
Vengeance?
expensive.
Too expensive?
The thing is, they can already play Unmarked Grave and they don't, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Unmarked Grave would just be like a 2-mana version of that.
Right, but it's non-legendary. You can get legendary creatures with this.
Is Unmarked? I thought Unmarked Grave was any card.
No,
it's a non-legendary. Yeah.
No, Unmarked Grave would be played a lot more if it was any if it was any creature.
That's why it's
card.
unmarked. They're not legendary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Even still,
Shame,
though,
that's
3 mana
poetry.
is kind of a lot.
It rhymes.
All right. Devin, were you thrilled when you had this card to talk about as your one of your spoilers?
This is my other preview card.
Yeah.
You got 2?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they gave me 2.
Yeah, they didn't even give us
They
one.
gave me.
Wow,
they
you
gave
only
me the
got 2?
Broken
I got
Bird.
3.
They gave me the Broken Bird in this thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna play with it. It's definitely cool with Phoenix. I like that application.
All right. Speaking of other cool cards with applications, we have some that we'll probably skip, including Post, Son of Rich, Ophiomancer. I mean, should we skip Toxic Deluge? That feels almost blasphemous.
No, we're not skipping. We're not
No,
skipping
this is
Deluge.
cool. Please read it.
It's good, right? 2 and a black for sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life, and all creatures get -X until end of turn. It's a Wrath. It's a 3-mana Wrath.
It's a Ugantha friendly Wrath.
I love that.
It beats indestructible creatures.
That's great.
We
too.
finally have a way to do it.
Yeah. After all this time.
Yeah, and Hexproofers.
Yeah, I mean, this probably goes in coffers, right? Like this is, I think it's maybe just a little bit. The only issue with coffers is they kind of do have a lot of things that want to pay life between Ring and Necro. So it's like, can you really afford this if you also have Ring and or Necro? And I mean, I guess you have March to get the life back, but you only start with 20 life. They only give you so much of that.
Yeah, that's true. Can I put this in shadow so that I can kill stuff and my
Probably.
shadow is the only thing that survives? Because that's how that works, right?
Oh yeah, pay X as additional cost. Yeah, that's true.
So if I'm at 19,
kinda cool.
if I'm at 19, I have a shadow out. I play this, or not 19, whatever. I have 12. Put my shadow out. It's a 1/1, and then I do -6 on this. I lose 6 life, and it's a 7/7.
Yep. No,
Or it's
you're
a
right.
1. It's a 1/1 till end of turn. Then it's a 7/7. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting.
Vulnerable. All right, next card, Victimize. I have this in a commander deck. I don't think I'm ever putting this in a modern deck. So I propose we skip it.
What makes this not good? Is it just like too much has to go right again? Like you have to have 2 creature cards in your graveyard. You have to have a creature to sacrifice on the board. I mean, because getting 2 creature cards out of your graveyard seems good. But I guess you have to have 2 that you want. You can't just do 1. Too much has to go right.
Yeah, I think it requires a lot of setup. Unless those 2 creatures either go infinite or are like a Gristle Brandon and a Traxa or something like equally insane that just kind of generates so much value that it puts you back into a game on the spot.
Yeah, Victimize. So this Victimize is legal in Timeless with Faithless looting, and it still doesn't do anything there.
Wow.
So
I see.
yeah. No, I think it's too expensive and it's too restrictive. You have to have a thing in play, 2 things in the graveyard. Like you can't. A lot of people might not know this, but you can't cast it if you don't have 2 targets. So it's a lot to set up, and you can just do the same thing with Persist and without as much setup.
There you go.
Next card is Cursed Mirror, which we are not going to discuss. And then that's a red card. We're also not going to discuss the Fledgling Dragon.
Too bad.
We're not even going to discuss Lelia the Blade Reforged, even though there's like some excitement about this card. None of us are particularly enthusiastic or feeling energized.
It seems
for
like
this one.
better cute than good. It does not seem modern power level to me.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. But the next
Will
one...
be cool if good.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say that.
Yeah. I'm not hating on it.
I mean, we can talk about Meltdown being really good.
Oh, yeah.
How much is there to say about that, though?
It's really good. Keep in
It's
mind...
good.
We've
Cast it.
We've said a lot of things are versus Saga payoffs here, but just remember, you could lose everything to a single Meltdown.
Yeah. X in a red, destroy each artifact with mana value X or less sorcery. Done. Pretty
And then the final-
efficient.
And then the final red card is Meteoric Mace, which we are not discussing. Moving on to the green reprints, we got Annoyed Altasaur. It has Reach, it has Trample, it has Cascade, and that's all
Cascade?
that we're
Anybody?
going to discuss.
Cascade? Anybody?
It can cascade into a Shardless agent.
Yeah.
We did it. Broke the format. Again, on the dive down.
Branching Evolution. The only person who wrote about this card was Shane, and he wasn't enthusiastic about it, so we are skipping it too.
It's basically a 3-mana hardened scales.
Yeah. Type. It's sort of hardened scales. Sort of not doubling season. I don't know. Like this doesn't seem like it's for our formats.
Yeah, nope.
Stan, this is for your format.
Priest of Titania. 1 and a green for a 1/1 tap to add green for each elf on the battlefield. So just think about the amount of mana you're producing in the elf mirrors.
Absolutely. Can we just talk about the next 3 cards all at once? Priest of Titania, Sylvan
let's do that.
Safekeeper, and Wirewood Symbiote. Stan, let's read the other 2 as well.
Sure. Sylvan Safekeeper is a single green for a 1/1 human wizard, not an elf. But it does read sack a land. Target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. Okay. The other creature in this little trifecta is Wirewood Symbiote, single green for a 1/1 creature insect, also not an elf.
Not an elf.
But there is an elf in the art, which should maybe clue you into something, because the text is return an elf you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, activate only once each turn. So I have experience with Wirewood Symbiote, playing Legacy Elves. And it's good there, both as a protection spell, but also as like a ramp engine too. It has a lot of utility.
Yeah.
Never played a Sylvan Safekeeper before.
Sylvan Safekeeper maybe doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it does go in elves. Maybe it does. I'm not really sure. It just felt like all these cards kind of were part of a stew of a new powering up of elves and or creature strategies, because Sylvan Safekeeper could go to a lot of places. I think it could maybe go in Yogg, right? It could go in a bunch of, maybe it goes in like in creature combo decks like Druid.
I think Safekeeper is going in the white of the Reliquary deck, where you're making a big white and protecting it at the same time.
Yeah, that could be too.
Well,
Definitely.
white wants creatures, not lands. I will remind you. It works in your Knight of the Reliquary
White fetches
deck.
the lands, right?
Yeah, white fetches lands.
Okay, I see where we're going here.
The cool thing, the application that I honestly see the most with Sylvan Safekeeper is just with Titania, where you just play Safekeeper and then you have a way to sack all your lands to make a bunch of 5/3, where that's kind of cool.
Oh, that Titania. Yeah.
Yeah, the 5-mana Titania. On the elf note, I mean, they're definitely printing a bunch of, like, Priest and Symbiote are both incredible printings for elves. I still question, it's like, how many good 1/1s do they have to print where you can, like, justify playing this deck in a Bowmaster format? And that's, I think, the question that's on everybody's mind is, like, can you afford to play elves with the presence of bowmasters? Maybe these cards are powerful enough that the answer is yes.
Going back to Safekeeper for a second, I think I don't want to gloss over it too much. Like, I think a repeatable Spellskite, even though it costs you sacrificing a land, is like a thing. Like, we have Wrenn and 6, right? And we have, this is green, where a lot of creature combos are based. Like I think Dave mentioned, Devoted Druid. I think that this is a good thing. I don't know, how good it is or how much power it adds to the decks, but being able, this effect is quite good. It's free effectively, and I think it will see play. I don't know if it's going to make anything particularly great.
You know what? If Elves is good, I'll be excited to play it. But I agree, Bowmasters is a little scary. But maybe this will be faster than Bowmasters.
You could also play the green leyline of, I think it's Vitality, which is just the ETB, the leyline effect, and then it gives all your creatures +0/+1. So that's kind of like maybe some insulation against Bowmasters.
Or you can just play an Elf Lord.
Yeah, but that costs mana. I don't want to pay mana.
Yeah.
You're producing tons of it, dude.
One last important note on Sylvan Safekeeper real quick is Yawgmoth has protection from humans. So one thing you have to keep in mind is you can't actually protect your Yawgmoth with Safekeeper.
I fell for that trap.
What you can do is if you have a Safekeeper in the graveyard and you have a Cauldron, you can Cauldron the Safekeeper onto a non-human creature and use that creature to protect the Yawgmoth.
There you go. Listen, leveling up. All right,
broke it.
We are moving along. I'll take some of these ones. So Brea, Ethereum Shaper, great EDH card. We're going to skip it. Kalia of the Vast. I think we're probably also going to skip that, right? Anybody got any thoughts about that?
The only thing that I want to note on Kalia is, so it's when it attacks an opponent, you can put an angel, demon, or dragon creature from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It is some sort of like anti-graveyard hate for Goryo's decks where you can just put Gristlebrand or Trax into play even if they have a ley line. That's the only thing that I was thinking of. But yeah, other than that specific application, probably nothing.
All right, medallions. There's 5 medallions in the set. We think the red one is potentially playable. The rest of them we think aren't going to come up at all, right?
Yeah. I know you want Jet Medallion to be good, Dave, but I'm sorry.
Jet. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I think it's hard to predict. I think it's cool to have them as an option.
Absolutely. Red's the only one that's any good. Maybe. Junk Diver is a pass, obviously. And then we've got Urza's Incubator. I think this is a pass. Worn Power Stone is a pass. And then we have 2 Threshold lands that are pretty interesting. Barbarian Ring, I don't think we have to really talk about, right? We might have this as a one-of in someone's burn deck. What do we think about Cephalid Coliseum as a dredge enabler in today's world?
Really good.
Yeah, so like what Threshold is, you have to have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, and you pay blue, tap it, sacrifice it, and then you probably are going to draw 3 cards and then discard 3 cards. So seems pretty solid.
This just gets the engine going again, I guess, after you have some early stuff happening, basically, right? And it comes into play untapped, so you just need 1 blue to make it go, right? I mean, it's better than a lot of the other enablers that we already play, like Cathartic Reunion, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, I mean, dredging 3 cards is huge.
Right.
Huge game.
The really important thing about Coliseum is it doesn't get countered. So, like, what Dredge has been kind of on the downswing lately. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of graveyard hate, but Force and Negation has been on the uptick, and it's really rough when you get your Cathartic Reunion forced, and this is just, if you have 7 cards, this is a, Dredge enabler that just, they can't force. So that's pretty important.
There you go. Deserted Temple is the next card. That's a reprint. It is a land. You tap it for a generic, or for a colorless, sorry, not a generic, and it has 1 untap target land. This card seems very powerful, but I do not know what it is for.
I don't either.
Right?
I don't have a lot to say about it.
Lotus Field, certainly to someone who's tried to make Lotus Field work in Modern several times. This could be something that works in that shell, I suppose. There's not a lot of downside to playing this card in a deck like that, you know what I mean? But also, the number of land payoffs that really exist in Modern is not the hugest number. I mean, maybe there's some conditions that lead to a Nykthos deck happening, where you might want to do this. Maybe it goes with Crawford's Fish. I don't know about that. But this is a powerful tool for people who like to try to do big swings with lands to give a shot, for sure.
Yeah, my only issue with it in Lotus Field is that deck has a lot of cantrips, and it being a colorless land when you're trying to set up is kind of awkward. So I'm not sure what that deck would look like, but it is powerful at Lotus Field.
Yeah. And then finally, one of the most cracked cards in the set, I think personally, which Everett had as a preview card actually, and sort of snuck in here towards the back end of preview season, is Phyrexian Tower.
Last but not least.
Which I did not realize was a legendary land, interestingly.
Yeah.
Tap for colorless, tap to sacrifice a creature, add black. Absurd in Yawgmoth. Like, that's just what we're saying, right? Like, this is just absurd in Yawgmoth.
Very good in Yawgmoth. We've talked about this a lot in the episode, but Stitcher Supplier Bloodghast rearing its ugly head again. I think there could be a sacrifice deck where it's like this, Supplier, Bloodghast, the Energy Recurring Nightmare to kind of loop that stuff, and then you're kind of looping it with Grief, which, that's what we needed, more cards to be good with Grief, because that card's not good enough yet.
Yeah, exactly. And also, what in the world, we're making a card that, like, it makes it a lot easier to cheat out a turn 2 Necrodominance if you want to.
Yep.
That's insane, actually.
I know. Yeah, like turn 1 Supplier, turn 2 Necro.
Do you think that this card is the reason that Necro has exile cards in your graveyard? Could be.
The original Necro had that too, right? Or it's whenever you discarded a card or something. I know the original Necro had an exile clause on it. I think it might have said whenever you discard a card, not whenever a card goes to the graveyard from anywhere.
Yeah. It says if you discard a card from your hand, remove it from the game. That's what it says.
Yeah, it's more specific.
Yeah.
I don't see how this is drastically different than like Flare of Cultivation. I know it's in different colors, right? But like it's sort of similar in concept, where it's like I'm gaining ramp from sacrificing a creature, and you're probably putting it in a deck that wants to do that type of thing here. I know it's not ramp, right? But I think it has play patterns that can be somewhat similar, and so I think this is a good card. No one's really saying that it's not. So
yeah,
I would argue that it's better than Flare of Cultivation because it's a land and it's repeatable.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. And you have undying creatures in your deck where you're like, I'm going to sacrifice a creature and it comes right back.
I think it's more abusable than Flare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. That's a set, my friends.
Should we talk about the basic lands now? Like which art's our favorite?
Yes.
Forest number 17.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Spicy.
All right. We're at about 2 hours. Let's maybe do some of our awards just so we plant some flags. I don't think we have to do all of these. I do want to talk a little bit about what, our overall takes on MH3. I feel like we kind of, got to summarize that a little bit. But I want to kind of start just with something fun. Like, what are your all's favorite cards from the set? Like, what do you just like? Like, what do you want to play? What do you just think's neat? Holding the potato.
I can give you a short list.
Yeah, please.
In no particular order. Maybe it's in color order on the spoiler page, actually. Harbinger of the Seas.
Yep.
Tune the Narrative.
Yeah.
Eladamri Corvecdal.
Mm-hmm.
Flage. Wintermoon.
Winter.
Ral Monsoon Mage. Priest of Titania. And Wirewood Symbiote. Those are all cards that would be fun to play around with if they find a home.
Yeah, they seem like stand cards.
Who am I but not a person to play stand cards?
Stand cards.
Let he who has not played stand cards cast the first spell.
Stan. Devin, what do you got?
So I didn't want to put any of like what my top 10 or 20 was, but 3 cards that I like that I want to play with that I think are very fun would be Chthonian Nightmare, 6, and stealing a little bit of thunder from Shane here, Flage. I like Flage a lot. That card's sick.
I mean, it's not on my list. That's on Stan's, but I do think Flage is cool. Like,
Or did I say Shane? I meant to say Stan.
That's okay. I mean, we are buds. Full disclosure, like I was looking through the card list and like nothing was like screaming out to me as like something I just can't wait to play, which is kind of like an interesting comment on my thoughts about the set overall. Like I'm actually hopeful for like and maybe an Izzet or Jeskai energy strategy to have some legs. I don't know if that will or be good, but I think it'll be fun to mess around with. Like I'm excited to see what people do with that, whether or not it's me. How about you, David? Anything?
I think for me, I'm going to go a different way than some of the ones you guys have said. So White Orchid Phantom, I really hope is good and playable. I really think that card is sweet. I guess I better buy some Flagstones or Trocaire if I think that's true, though. I talked to several times about Flare of Duplication, which is a card I'm almost positive is terrible, but I still want to try it. I am itching to break out my old Storm deck that I have, and let's see if cards like Ral become good in that. It is interesting when you say, like, hey, I'm not sure what cards are really screaming out to me as stuff that I'm super excited about, Shane. Like, I feel a little similarly, but I feel like that's because there's so many cards in here that are just, like, big mana cards or, like, affinity enablers, and, like, they're not decks that I really am that deep into.
Yeah.
But I guess the other two cards I would love to play around with, Flage and Necro Dominance. Let's Necro, baby.
All right. I'm going to skip best creatures. I think I think there's a lot of great creatures in this set. Let's go to best new to modern reprint. I'll just start because my answer is very boring. I think it might just be Meltdown. I'm hopefully something cool like Sylvan Safekeeper or like maybe like Kappa or something like that. But I think Meltdown is just like cheap and does the job really well.
You're right. That was boring.
Sorry.
Stan, what's yours then?
He was upfront about it.
I guess yours is Priest or one of those.
I got cool ones like Priest of Titania, Wildwood Symbiote, also Toxic Deluge. That's a cool card. Toxic.
Yeah.
And Captain
Tell me
Kennedy,
you're an
of
Elves
course.
player without telling me you're an Elves player.
He's reformed. Devin, what's yours?
So, talking about a little bit more today, my initial answer was going to be Kappa Cannoneer. I actually have now changed it to Recruiter of the Guard.
Wow.
Ooh. Play a ticket flag.
I think what I didn't realize was I didn't know Shrieking Drake was a card, and now that I found that out, just like this synergy of like Recruiter, Ranger Captain, or like Recruiter for Shrieking Drake, cast Drake for free off the Allurin, pick up my Recruiter, cast the Recruiter. Like you can do so much cool stuff with it.
It's true. I think mine is Buried Alive. I'm super interested in because I would love to Phoenix. Let's see if that's a thing. And also, I guess the other one is probably just giving respect to Phyrexian Tower. I'm not super excited to play that, but I'm just gonna place some more respect on its name.
Oh yeah, that is a new to modern reprint. Yeah. So that will go on my list. Okay.
It's too late, Shane. Your
Yeah,
list
right.
is
My list is
notarized.
over. It's already boring.
It's notarized and sealed.
Single upgrade to an existing deck. Flare of Cultivation, probably.
Ugin's Labyrinth.
Yeah, I'm on Luke's
Certainly.
Into what? Into like just Tron? Green Tron?
I mean, yeah. Like, I don't think it's sprouting up new decks, per se.
I would say that I would give that to Ugin's Labyrinth for Affinity. That's the biggest upgrade there.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Necro.
But what existing deck do you feel like that goes into? Coffers?
Scam. I just think Necro's going to be really good in Scam.
You keep saying that, and I'm very interested in that idea. It feels a little peanut butter and zucchini to me. Like, like two great tastes that I'm not sure taste great together, but maybe. Maybe.
You ever try it?
Yeah,
I haven't.
have you tried that combo?
Yeah, maybe I'm going to go try it right after this, and I'll let you guys
try
know.
it and shut up.
All right. What do you think people are going to try to do with this set that likely won't be good enough? And for me, that's Eldrazi, like a fairish mid-range Eldrazi Tron. I don't know how that can still be a thing in contemporary modern, right? Even with the new pieces that I got. Maybe, if it's like some kind of really big controlling thing, but I don't know if like, Thought Not Seer, Reality Smasher type stuff is going to be good enough, but we'll see.
My expectations are pretty tempered for elves. I want it, but my heart's been broken so many times. Probably Storm too.
That's the one I was going to say, Stan, was I want Storm to be good, and I'll see if I can get those cards for cheap, but I don't think it is going to be.
I think if it's going to be good, it's just not going to look like any of the Storm decks we're actually experienced.
It's just mono red
They'll
Storm.
have to change it. Yeah, or something.
Yeah, I don't think we're running Baral or Goblin Electromancer. I think it's Rawl and the Medallion, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I was going to say either Elves or, believe it or not, Merfolk. Mostly just because I don't actually think Flare of the Nile is a good card, but I'm not sure how good it is in Merfolk. We've talked about this a bunch where it's like, do you really want to sack your Lord to your Flare? So yeah, I think maybe those two would be on my list.
What are your most like underrated cards in the set? Dave, you want to go? You're in here.
This is a card I forgot to mention earlier, but I actually think so one of my underrated cards in the set, Devin said earlier, and that's a card that's not in the set. It's Eldrazi Mimic. I think is one of the most underrated cards from this set. But Eldrazi Linebreaker, I think, is actually maybe one of the most underrated cards in the set.
Yeah, the linebacker is good.
Yeah.
Love it.
Devin, I feel like you've got a list in your head on this.
I was thinking about it. It's between two for me, and it's more like commons and uncommons. The energy draw or energy draw card, get 2 energy, or blue draw card, get 2 energy, tune the narrative, I think it was, and Planar Genesis.
Yeah, Planar Genesis is on my list. Static Prison, a card, we talked about it last week. I think that's potentially better than it looks, for sure. Meltdown, I think, is just like so utilitarian that people are like, okay, cool, Meltdown. But I think it might be more ubiquitous than we think, but I could be wrong there. It just is red, so who knows. I think maybe Grist is like the flip walkers in general, but particularly Grist maybe. I don't know how underrated it is, but maybe Sorin. Okay. Overhyped cards. I'm going to say Tamiyo and Wintermoon. Maybe Nethergoyf.
I forgot about Nethergoyf.
In Nethergoyf, Amped Raptor. Devin, you kind of said this last week. Like, I think this is getting narrower and narrower in my evaluation of it. Like, what it can do, how you need to build around it, what the best case scenario is versus worst case scenario. And, like, the floor is getting lower the more I think about it.
Yeah, my two were going to be Amped Raptor and Wintermoon. Those, I think, are my two most overhyped. For, like, similar reasons where it's like, like you said, Amped Raptor, low floor.
Yeah, I had Amped Raptor as well.
You have Amped Raptor for a bunch of these, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it's overhyped. I'm not sure about it.
Wait, how do you have it as most overhyped and number 12? We'll get to number 12 in a second. But.
Inside every man, there are 2 Raptors.
The amped and the not so amped.
I think most overhyped here is Guide of Souls.
I don't even remember what that does.
That's the Soul Warden, the Energy Soul Warden.
Oh, yes.
I'm just saying.
That was on my list of best creatures, but that's loose.
I think it's one of the best creatures, maybe, but I also think it could be one of the most overhyped, maybe.
I'm going to combine the next two, and I'm just going to go like, what do you think is going to have the single biggest impact on Modern, and then do you think anything is likely to be banned? Because those two kind of go hand in hand.
Amped Raptor.
You think it's that good, huh?
You said it for both of them, so your answer is easy.
You were unsure about it.
I don't know. It's just so it's beguiling, is what it is.
It's a good-looking raptor.
Yeah,
guiled raptor.
I think it might not be good enough, or if someone cracks it open, it'll be too good.
My answer was, it's maybe a toss-up between Necrodominance and Ugin's Labyrinth for me. It's probably one of those two. I think those are probably the two most powerful cards in a vacuum in the set, and I can't really pick between the two of them, so I'll just give it a tie between those two.
I actually agree with those two, Devin. That's where my mind is. I'm less worried about Necrodominance, I think, more worried about Labyrinth, but and I don't know if that's going to happen like tomorrow, but they seem like the most impactful cards here to me.
I can see Flare of Cultivation and like going hand in hand with our boy Frazier, like kind of in every deck. Arboreal Grazer. And like, it's just a package you can use, right? Where it's just like Arboreal Grazer ramp, Flare of Cultivation ramp, and then that can just go in a lot of potential strategies, let alone just Titan. But I can see Flare of Cultivation being something that has a surprisingly large impact because it's building off of an already established strategy. I'm hoping not Flare of Denial. I don't think so. I don't really want to see some kind of, weird free counterspell showing up all over the place. But and for bannings, nothing is screaming ban me. But I can see like accelerants, again, like going to Flare of Cultivation, Ugin's Labyrinth, probably not Phyrexian Tower, but I think like that's the kind of stuff that heads into the danger zone. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're putting, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, whatever, into Modern, that's potentially an issue.
2 different ways to do it.
Yeah. And their track record is they've been pretty aggressive on banning fast mana in the past, right?
Yeah.
I guess Spirit Guide did live for a while before it got the axe, and maybe that's a product of Valky more than Spirit Guide, but...
Yep.
All right. Let's tie a bow on this. I'm not going to, wax poetic, but like, what's our/your take on MH3 and Stanislav? You've been digesting this in a different way than us.
Yes.
So what are your kind of initial takes on MH3?
So I have 2 feelings that are a little different. The first one is I wanted to see how much of an impact MH1 had versus MH2 in terms of like how many cards actually saw play through any stretch of the word. So I did like a quick scan of both sets and was pretty generous in what I considered seeing play. And by my generous count, I saw about 35 MH1 cards that like rung a bell for me, followed by 40 MH2 cards that rung a bell for me.
Okay.
And I think that delta felt right to some extent. Like it felt like MH2 had maybe a bigger impact, though by my very unscientific count, perhaps not that much bigger. And it just kind of made me wonder, like, how many cards do we need to see from MH3 have, like, any kind of impact or any playability for us to feel like this set is successful, adds fun to the format, or can perhaps even change the format in some capacity? And that's really an open question. I don't know. Like, do we want a big change? Do we want an MH2 level change? It seems like it's a foregone conclusion that we're generally expecting. But 40 cards can apparently do it.
I feel a little like I might take the over on this set, even though in a weird way, I feel like this set is less powerful than Modern Horizons 2. So in a sense, I feel like there's a bunch of internal synergies in this set that maybe for better or for worse seem like they're going to lead to new decks in a way that Modern Horizons 2 sort of didn't. Even though there are new decks out of Modern Horizons 2, it was like they were sort of they were sort of taking value-based strategies and making those good again in various ways.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt your take here, but like I see that in like the Horizons sets previously had sort of more creatures where it's like, here's Civilian, here's some goblins. Do you know what I mean? Like, here's stuff that you put into your goblin deck, your merfolk deck, whatever, that will just make it probably better. This has some of that, but it also has a lot of just sort of generic enablers, where it's like, get stuff out of your graveyard, put stuff in your graveyard, fill your graveyard, Necro, Phyrexian Tower. And that's just like one type of example, right? Where it's like, it's not just like this card is good if you sacrifice it. Like, we're not getting the Stitcher suppliers. We're getting like the engines that like make those already existing cards like potentially better. And so I think there's more sort of flexibility in what we're being offered here than some of what we were offered in previous sets, where it's like, here's some tools, use what you have and what we've given you in this set to do something cool. And maybe it's cool enough, right? And I like that about the set in some ways. It's potentially more dangerous that way. Like Dave said, you took the over on 40, and I don't disagree, right? I think there's a combination of like efficient spells that are just like good, Player Genesis or something like that, or just a lot of like just cheap stuff.
And there's a bunch of stuff that might just be parasitic, where it's like, oh, there might just be an energy deck and 8 energy cards go in the energy deck, right? And so all of a sudden, that's another reason that we're taking the over. Like, I would take the over on raw numbers there, because there's just some stuff that has this weird internal connection to it.
Yeah, they're kind of like interlocked in a weird way.
Yeah.
I guess I would say overall, my thoughts on MH3. So the way that I want to kind of formulate this is go back to like, so the first Modern Horizons, a lot of the power level was front loaded in threats, right? You had Hogak, that was a disaster. You had Urza, which a lot of people played with early on. Yawgmoth, very good card, didn't maybe see a ton of play till after. I guess like maybe more fringe stuff like Seasoned Pyromancer, but it seemed like the general power level, with the exception of maybe Negation and Force of Vigor, the general power level was a lot of into threats. And then if you kind of maybe switch to MH2, they kind of, it seemed like they reverted a little bit with their introduction of the new free spells, which was, Fury, kill your creature, Solitude, kill your creature, Subtlety, counter your creature, Endurance, exile your graveyard. So it seemed like they maybe realized their mistakes or whatever from the first one. They kind of tried to revert that back into maybe printing more good answers. But now it seems like we're kind of going back to square one, where a lot of the power level in this set, to me, comes in the form of threats. Like, if we look at the most powerful cards, I mean, I guess Necrodominance isn't necessarily a threat by itself, but it kind of is. Nadu, which I think is one of the best cards in the set. You have again, Primal Prayers, not a threat per se, but it is a combo card. It seems like there's a lot more combo enablers, and that's kind of what scares me about this set, where, you have like Primal Prayers, the Nightmare, Ugin's Labyrinth, I guess not a combo card, but sort of. You have Dredge enablers, you have the Oops All Spells lands, the Belcher lands, so I don't know. It's I think the set's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm worried that we maybe are approaching maybe not necessarily a full-on combo summer, but like a lot more degenerate decks than we're used to seeing.
Yeah, my ultimate hope is like that this widens the format in a less on-the-nose way than MH1 especially was trying to do, where it's just like, here's some more tools in the toolkit, have some fun experimenting, the cream will rise to the top, and the Modern has so much interaction now and like free/cheap spells to like stop what people are trying to do. Like, it might put strain on sideboards even more than Modern already had, especially at first. But I think like optionality here is good, and I think it's more flexible than we've seen before in a lot of ways. So that's kind of like my best case scenario mentality here.
Can I share one last thought?
Please.
They're pushing energy pretty hard.
Yes.
With a lot of cards and a lot of colors. Yeah. And I am not thrilled with that specifically. I don't really recall it being like a truly beloved mechanic when it was
awful.
Yeah, when it was in Color Center. They had to ban Attune with Aether. I played in that era of Standard, and there was essentially like one energy deck, but it was at the top of the metagame, and people largely hated it. And I don't think it's an inherently fun mechanic. It's a resource. It's not like changing the way you interact with your cards. So I guess like on some level, if the future of Modern is going to involve energy as this ubiquitous characteristic of the format, I'm not sure that that's going to like be the thing that adds fun to Modern.
What you're saying, I totally agree with. It's also part of what makes me have a little bit extra doubt about some of these energy cards, because like maybe they know what a pain it is, or because of what a pain it is, it won't be picked up. But I don't know.
Yeah. I hope to be wrong. Like I want to have fun, and if energy cards is part of the fun equation, like great. But the energy deck sucked in the past. I'm not sure why we would want to try to like do it again.
Yeah, maybe their theory was that the overall power level of Modern was high enough, and even if they kind of push the knobs a little bit on the energy cards, it's like, I guess the question is that stuff even going to be able to compete with the Griefs and the Necros and, the Primeval Titans and the Urza Sagas of the world? It's like, I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate a little bit of what I said last week about this, I think that they came into this looking at broken cards from the history of Magic and looked at a way to more properly cost them using energy as a separate resource that you have to use in order to make them work. So they're like, hey, maybe, Recurring Nightmare would be fine if you had to use a quarter of a mana every time to make it work. And that's sort of like what they did with energy, I think, on a lot of the really powerful payoff cards. But like with Allurin, where they're like, hey, wouldn't it be great if blah, 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 blah. And then they looked at some underpowered cards and said, well, maybe if we just put energy on it, that'll make it a little bit more powerful because you spend a mana on it and you get a creature that does this, but you also get an energy, which is worth something on its own. And so I think it was sort of like a big card balancing exercise in some way. And I'm curious whether it's going to add up to something that's not a hassle as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm excited to see what people are doing, play some of these decks, talk about some of what people are doing. Gives us a lot of stuff to observe, comment on, test ourselves. So a lot to come in the near future. But we've done 4.5 hours total content on this. We did it again. I'm happy.
It's a lot.
I'm also glad we don't have to do this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking the next month off.
Maybe next week.
No, we're not.
We might take next week off. What's it going to be worth talking about until we actually have these cards?
Well, I guess that wraps up this week's show.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. I got some decks to brew. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm in the early streamer event on Arena, so maybe I'll draft some MH3 and tell you about some great limited synergies I found that we can.
The limited does look fun.
There may be a card. There's always like one card that people realize in draft is way better than anyone thought it was. So maybe you'll find it.
And you'll hear about it on the Dive Down when that happens. So subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and a review. You can do that on Spotify too. Dave reads all the Spotify comments every night.
Even someone that put a lot of meows in there and then I didn't publish it. I'm sorry.
If you'd like to submit a question to the podcast or just reach out in general, you can tweet us at The Dive Down, all one word, or email thedivedown@gmail.com. If you'd like to support our show, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also check out our store at thedivedown.com/store. And you can support Devin at twitch.tv/Doomwake. The O's are zeros. Write that down. Head over to heavyplay.com to get some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats featuring the EquipMag system. If you use promo code TheDiveDown2024, you'll get 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com. Shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring the Dive Down 2. If you sign up for Mana Traders using promo code TheDiveDown_43A, all one word, you'll get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. And save some money on paper cards over at Nerd Rage Gaming with code DIVE8 to get 8% off your order there. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Space Bud for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and please help me with my babies. Hello and welcome to, sorry, what episode is this? 278? Okay.
278.
Jane.
Hello.
Keep it in. Keep it in. This is the show now. Keep it in.
I'll just put in the outtake.
Keep it in.